120 light-years from Earth. The James Webb Space Telescope captured a whisper in starlight, a molecule that should not exist without life, dimethyl sulfide. On Earth, it is made only by living creatures, plankton, exhaling across warm oceans. Now, it has been found suspended in the alien sky of K218b, a world larger than ours, heavier, hotter, yet somehow more hospitable. This is no accidental signal. It came through months of observation, filtered through hydrogen-rich clouds as the planet crossed in front of its red dwarf star. First came water vapor, then methane, then carbon dioxide, and then the unexpected breath of sulfur braided too. Carbon. Scientists at Cambridge stared at the data with trembling hands. 99.7% confidence left only a sliver of doubt. They tested for error, filtered cosmic noise, reran the models, and still the signal held a molecule with no non-living source. K218b is not Earth's twin, but its strange, generous cousin, with an atmosphere thick as a quilt, locking heat into a steady 120 degrees Fahrenheit cradle. The planet spins in permanent half-light, one face always day, the other endless night, with a ring of twilight where warmth may linger and oceans may exhale. You imagine microscopic drifters in that soft hydrogen sea, trading electrons the way, lullabies, trade notes, and above, the golden mirror of Webb, colder than Pluto, still as prayer waited to receive their breath. The infrared light revealed chemical notches like a barcode in heat, and the telescope, like a gentle detective, listened instead of proclaimed. You feel how science is a kind of quiet listening, noise curves, confidence intervals, and the soft hush of wonder graft. Dimethyl sulfide is not proof carved in stone, but it is a breath warm on your ear. A gap in light shaped like a clue, and a biological autograph written in the sky. Maybe life has always been speaking, and only now have we learned to hush our own noise enough to hear. So you lean closer, not with certainty, but with care, and let that whisper of sulfur and salt guide you deeper, not to answers, but to the soft chemistry of the first question life ever asked. Am I alone? You remember how clouds on Earth are, sometimes born from this same molecule. Phytoplankton breathe it out, sunlight splits it, and particles gather around the fragments, giving water a surface to cling to, a way to fall as rain. A planet's weather, nudged by life's chemistry and atmospheric conversation between microbe and monsoon. If K218b's skies carry dimethyl sulfide in abundance, perhaps its clouds, too, are braided with biology. Perhaps rain there is. Written by cells. Still, you stay careful, because bedtime truths deserve the softness of maybe. Could geology fake this fragrance? On Earth, no rock, no volcano, no lightning spark has been caught making dimethyl sulfide in significant amounts. It is a molecule born of metabolism, a cousin to breath and waste and growth. If alien chemistry found another path, it would need energy, enzymes, pathways, things that look suspiciously like life wearing a different coat. So you picture enzymes as tiny hands, sculpting sulfur into this flexible form. In oceans you have never seen, under stars redder than sunset, what would those hands be made of? Proteins like yours. Something stranger, woven from building blocks, dissolved in hydrogen-heavy water. You do not know. The not knowing isn't cold. It is warm, like a bath you slide into, letting mystery soothe you rather than chill you. Numbers drift through the room like lazy fireflies. Concentration estimates, detection, significance, confidence, intervals. They blink, they dim, they glow again. You let them hover without swatting. The beauty is not only in the probability, but in the coherence. Other gases align with life's story: methane, abundant; ammonia, scarce. On Earth, ammonia would accumulate if biology were absent. Life here, and maybe there, tends to scrub it away, folding nitrogen into flesh. You smile at the idea of metabolism as housekeeping, tidying the atmosphere with quiet diligence. Dimethyl sulfide itself is small, humble, eager to evaporate. It rises from liquid water because water is busy, churning heat, tossing molecules upward like confetti. For the molecule to reach a telescope's gaze, surfaces must trade whispers with skies. That means mixing, wind, temperature gradients, an atmosphere neither stagnant nor stripped. A planet alive with weather feels like a planet that could be alive with life. You hold the phrase "scent of breathing oceans" inside your mouth and notice how it calms you. Breathing is rhythm. Oceans are cradle. Scent is memory. Put together, they become lullaby logic. If it smells like a sea, perhaps something swims. Of course, smell here is metaphor. No human nostril will ever sample that alien breeze, but instruments are extensions of senses, and imagination is an extension of longing. You recall the sulfur cycle on Earth: volcano to ocean, microbe to cloud, cloud to rain, rain to river, river back to sea. Closed loops, open possibilities. Every element on the periodic table seems to desire a dance partner, a pathway, a circuit. Life is master choreographer, weaving atoms through routines that repeat and evolve. Dimethyl sulfide is one step in that choreography, a pivot move microbes use to manage sulfur's reactive energy. To see it elsewhere is to glimpse a dance, floor lit in distant crimson light. Sleepiness nestles in as you picture scale. A molecule is so small you could fit sextillions on your fingertip, yet gather enough of them and a telescope 1,000,000 miles out can notice. It feels like listening to a choir by hearing one vowel, then extrapolating the hymn. Bold but careful. You cradle that careful boldness like a candle cupped against wind between instruments and interpretation. There is a quiet corridor where algorithms walk. You picture them like librarians in the dim, comparing shelves of spectra, flagging oddities, cross-checking with simulated skies. Machine learning, a phrase that sounds mechanical, behaves almost tenderly here. It learns the difference between speckle and signal, between a scratch on the mirror and a syllable from a living sea. You trust it, but you also peek over its shoulder, because trust in science is a partnership, not a surrender. You remember that dimethyl sulfide absorbs in specific infrared bands, little notches around which the continuum bends. If the bands repeat across multiple transits, if they appear in different instruments, if removing one dataset still leaves the pattern standing, confidence swells like tide under a full moon. Redundancy becomes reassurance. The molecule is shy, but it shows up for every roll call on Earth. Chemists have chased this compound through air and ocean for decades, measuring how sunlight cracks it, how bacteria tweak it, how clouds latch onto its fragments like seeds to soil. Every experiment writes a footnote under tonight's claim. Yes, this is what life does with sulfur. You rest easier when the past props up the present. There is also the curious absence, the missing ammonia, the lack of abundant nitrogenous leftovers one would expect in a barren hydrogen bath. Life, even alien life, often tidies what it touches, folding excess into bodies, locking hazards into harmless loops. The spectrum is not just perfume, it is housekeeping. You smile at the thought of microbes as meticulous cleaners, dusting their sky of ammonia, and still, humility stays beside you. Perhaps there is a chemistry book unwritten, a pathway no earthly lab has tried. You leave a chair for that possibility at the table, but you notice how the other chairs fill with evidence, warm and occupied. You think of naming, humans' name to hold, but perhaps molecules are the names life gives to itself. Carbon chains, sulfur bridges, nitrogen rings, written and erased, written again in every tide and lung. Out there, something has written dimethyl sulfide into air. You do not need to know the author tonight. You only need to accept that ink exists in the dim edge of your awareness. The next question turns over. What keeps those oceans liquid? What keeps that air circulating? Heat, yes, but how much? How steady? The number from before 120 degrees Fahrenheit drifts back like a warm blanket pulled over your shoulders. Temperature is tempo. Too cold, the music slows to a crawl. Too hot, the score burns. Somewhere in between, chemistry hums a lullaby. Before you reach for warmth, you linger once more with sulfur. Imagine a plankton cell like a tiny lantern, powered by sunlight filtered through waves. It makes sugars, it stores energy, and to balance its sulfur budget, it releases dimethyl sulfide the way a lantern releases scentless heat. Now shift that image. The lantern glows in hydrogen-rich twilight, sunlight redder, waves deeper, but the release, the soft exhale remains. You breathe out with it, long and slow. Your breath fogs the window. There's fogs a spectrum. Two worlds, one act of exhalation, separated by 120 years of light travel and stitched by a telescope's patience. You feel less alone, not because you have proof, but because the pattern is plausible, poetic, persistent. The night holds its breath with you. Somewhere, data is still arriving, still being cleaned, still being doubted, still being believed. Somewhere else, plankton on Earth continue their ancient work. Dimethyl sulfide drifting into your own sky, seeding your clouds, cooling your climate. The molecule is both local and cosmic, intimate and immense. You let your eyelids close, but keep the story running slow, like waves sliding over sand. Sulfur's footsteps fade, not because they end, but because you are following them into another room of understanding. Temperature waits there, warm and patient, ready to explain how a planet keeps water soft and chemistry supple. For now, hold the perfume a moment longer. Let curiosity stretch softly between breaths tonight, warm, slow, sweet. Let it anchor you the way salt on your skin anchors memory of summer shores. Let it promise, without shouting, life can smell like this, even far away. And when you turn the page, follow the heat gentle, steady. Cradle warm into the next question. The cosmos is humming. Warmth drapes the alien world the way a parent settles a blanket over a sleeping child, smoothing corners, checking breath. You feel it before you calculate it. 120 degrees Fahrenheit, a number that sounds like a hot sidewalk, a steaming mug, the heat of a body fighting off a virus yet. Here it is, a cradle, not a crisis. This temperature is not a spike, it is a plateau, wide and even, stretching from dayside to nightside because a thick hydrogen atmosphere keeps losing nothing and sharing everything. Temperature is tempo. Too fast, molecules collide so wildly that bonds tear and structures fall apart. Too slow, and chemistry dozes, reactions crawl, metabolism stalls. Life prefers a middle rhythm, a Goldilocks beat, steady enough to build with, lively enough to dance. On this world, the beat holds. Hydrogen, light but abundant, acts like insulation in a winter coat. Each molecule bumps and jostles, absorbing and re-emitting infrared light, trapping warmth that would otherwise leak into black. You picture the gas as countless tiny hands, catching heat, passing it hand to hand until all sides glow softly. You have known nights when a fever made your skin hum, a tremble between comfort and alarm. Here, that hum is planetary. Think of water as a listener. Below 32 Fahrenheit, it freezes, becoming rigid, closing ears to complex chemistry. Above 212, it boils, scattering attention into vapor. But between those extremes, water listens, dissolves, transports, negotiates. At 120, it is a lively listener. Molecules sliding past one another with ease, carrying ions, ferrying nutrients, letting reactions meet like friends in a warm cafe. If pressure is high, boiling points shift, freezing points sag, and liquid can persist in defiance of simple charts. The planet bends those rules kindly. The world is tidally locked one face in eternal day. The other, in endless night yet temperature, smooths this duality. Winds race from hot to cold, but the atmosphere is thick enough to slow their fury, like heavy curtains damping a draught. Heat is shared, redistributed, reconciled. Even the perpetual twilight ring, that gentle border between glare and shadow, rests in a soft thermal compromise. You walk there in imagination, barefoot on warm rock, feeling no shock as you step from day to dusk. Only a gradual dimming of light while warmth remains, a hand that doesn't let go, you hold in your mind. The greenhouse you learned about in school, glass panes capturing sunlight, plants thriving within. Here the panes are hydrogen and helium, simple gases that on Earth are shy and sparse, but here they are choir and canopy. A greenhouse does not only heat, it stabilizes. Spikes are softened, lows are lifted. The result is not a sauna, but a softly humming incubator. You picture microbes as seeds on a warming mat, germinating not in fits and starts, but in a long, unhurried season that never quite ends. The science behind the number is plain but patient. Webb watched the planet cross its star and measured the faint glow when the world slipped behind secondary eclipse. Thermal emission, spectral fingerprints. From those tiny changes, researchers inferred temperature, models of radiative transfer, convection, and molecular absorption converged. Their equations like overlapping lullabies, each reinforcing the other's melody. The uncertainty bars narrowed until the value sang almost in tune with your intuition. This is warm enough. This is steady enough. This might be home enough for chemistry to try complexity. Balance is the quiet hero. The star, a red dwarf, gives off less energy than your sun, but the planet sits closer, soaking up roughly the same light per square meter that Earth receives. The atmosphere traps that gift. The surface weather ocean, water-rich ice, or some exotics, just enough to keep from overheating. Feedback loops albedo, cloud cover, chemical sinks interlock like gears, none spinning wildly, all meshing. Imagine an orchestra tuning quietly, each instrument adjusting to the others until a single note holds and holds. You recall that on Earth, deserts scorch by day and freeze by night because thin air cannot carry yesterday's warmth into tomorrow. Mars proves the rule too. Sunlight warms, then darkness steals without resistance. Here, resistance is built in. Hydrogen is poor at radiating heat away quickly. It keeps the planet's memory warm. Night is not a plunge, but a sigh. Day is not an assault, but a glow. The cycle narrows to a gentle sway, a rocking chair instead of a pendulum. Let your mind dip into the water. At depth, boiling betrays expectation. Earth's deep-sea vents push water well above normal boiling points because pressure pins molecules close. On K218b, pressures may be immense, but hydrogen dissolving into water acts as a cushion, altering boiling and freezing thresholds, widening the liquid range. Think of antifreeze in a car radiator, but natural, planetary, elegant. Liquid can persist where your instincts say steam or ice should reign. Life, if present, would find not a narrow lane but a wide boulevard of possibility. Your own body is a thermometer tuned by evolution. You feel slight changes, shiver or sweat, to hold 37 Celsius steady. Imagine organisms on this world. Perhaps they run hotter or cooler, but what matters is stability. Stability frees creativity, when survival is not an hourly negotiation. Complexity can unfold like a fern frond, slowly, perfectly, according to rules written in chemistry's grammar but edited by time. Temperature is the editor's calm hand, crossing out extremes, leaving room for revision. The number 120 feels almost intentional to you. Though you know nature does not intend, it simply permits. Permissiveness is its own gift. The hydrogen blanket is generous, but not smothering. The star's light is gentle, but not meager. Heat moves, but does not flee. Cold exists, but does not conquer. Every clause in the sentence of climate ends with a comma, not a period. You read it aloud, softly, so you do not wake your own doubt. Chemistry quickens with warmth. Many reactions double their rate with every 10 degrees or so, a rule of thumb, tucked into every biochemist's pocket. At 120 enzymes, if there are enzymes, would flicker quickly. Metabolism would hum. Evolution's engine could idle higher without redlining. Faster is not always better, but consistent speed gives predictability. Think of bread dough rising in a warm kitchen, not too hot to kill yeast, not too cold to stall. The planet is a proofing drawer for biochemistry, allowing molecular loaves to lift evenly, porous and strong. Yet you keep skepticism tucked under your pillow, not thrown out the window. Could instruments misread? Could patchy clouds fool the models? Perhaps. But multiple wavelengths agree, multiple analyses align. The temperature is not guessed. It is deduced, like finding a fireplace by the warmth on your palms. You do not see the flame, but you feel its arithmetic. Thermal inertia becomes your bedtime metaphor. Large oceans resist change. Thick atmospheres delay it. When wind tries to rush heat away, mass says wait. When stellar flares spike, depth says hush. The planet's climate carries momentum like a slow river, reluctant to freeze or flash to steam. In that reluctance, life, if present, can plan, iterate, expand. You remember Earth's extremes: Sahara noon, Antarctic night, hydrothermal vents, tundra soils. Life found ways, but often by shrinking, sporing, sleeping. Here, maybe, life can stay awake. Awake doesn't mean frantic. It can mean steadily alert, eyes half closed, breathing regular, not forced into hibernation. An ecosystem could stretch like a cat in a sunbeam that never moves. Heat also shapes geography. If there is a solid surface, rock might soften, deform slowly, encouraging gentle tectonics or convective churn. If there is only ocean, temperature gradients could drive currents, vast and laminar, layers sliding like silk. Nutrients would circulate without violent storms. Calm does not mean still. It means movement without trauma. You prefer that for bedtime. And perhaps life does too. Consider the night side, forever dark, yet not frigid. Imagine organisms adapted to red twilight or to darkness, punctured by bioluminescent signals, communicating with flashes, pulses, scents, dissolved in warm water. Warmth ensures that signaling molecules diffuse reliably. Cycles of sleep and wake could be governed by chemistry instead of light. Life could tell time by temperature rhythms, not sunrise. Now, pivot gently to probability. You have heat, liquid, water, a stable atmosphere, metabolic hints. Each one is a checkbox in the quiet checklist you hold. Balancing them is the art. Too much heat, sterilization. Too little, stagnation. Here, equilibrium hums. The lullaby repeats, warm enough, warm enough, warm enough. Let your own shoulders drop. Your room has its climate control, its blankets, its small greenhouse of breath and fabric. You are, in miniature, what that planet is in grand scale, a system holding heat just right for life to dream. You feel kinship in thermodynamics, a sleepy solidarity with a world you will never touch. But comfort is not the end. It is the beginning of curiosity. If temperature is this kind, what else is tucked under that hydrogen quilt? What pressures, what chemistries, what currents? The next question curls at the edge of your pillow. How does hydrogen so light, so simple build skies and seas that breathe? You tasted the molecule in the last chapter. Now you want to feel the medium it swims in. For tonight, linger on the number like a mantra. 120, 120. Inhale on 1, exhale on 2, rest on 0. Let it slow your heart, smooth your thoughts. The planet sleeps in its warm bath. You sleep in yours. Both of you. Cradle possibilities neither can yet name. You close your eyes on heat that does not burn, on comfort that does not dull, on balance that invites exploration. Somewhere, wind carries warmth across a terminator line. Somewhere, a spectrum carries that warmth into your room. Let the last thought soften. If heat can be this gentle, what else can the universe tuck in for bed, and what secrets wait beneath? That soft, breathing hydrogen sky. Hydrogen is the lightest note the universe can play, yet tonight you feel how it can carry a whole symphony. It drifts, it dives, it dissolves, becoming sky, becoming sea, becoming the quiet medium everything learns to move through. You rest inside that image, a planet wrapped in hydrogen like gauze, porous enough for light to enter, thick enough for warmth to stay, supple enough to fold into liquid and whisper through waves. You picture the atmosphere first. Hydrogen molecules of protons cradling electrons like tiny lanterns bounce and mingle, breaking the harsh lines between hot and cold. Because they are light, they move quickly. Because there are so many, they hold each other close. Infrared photons try to escape, are caught, are passed along hand to hand until night feels like day's patient echo. The sky is not empty. It is a slow exchanger of heat, a communal hearth where energy circulates instead of fleeing. Then you let your mind sink. Hydrogen does not simply float above it, slips into water, dissolving under pressure the way sugar sneaks into tea. The result is not the familiar ocean you have sailed or swum. It is a solution water thickened with possibility, its boiling and freezing points nudged aside, its density tuned like an instrument. Down there, Pressure does not hammer everything flat. It cushions, spreading the weight like a good mattress, allowing structure to persist where you expect collapse. Imagine a bubble rising. On Earth, a bubble is a quick traveler, buoyancy rushing it upward. In a hydrogen-rich ocean, buoyancy is a slower song. Gases dissolve more readily. Gradients smear. A bubble might pause, linger, behave less like punctuation and more like a comma, giving microbes time to gather, to trade molecules, to build tiny cities across its surface. You see a bioreactor in every pearl of gas, a drifting marketplace. Of chemistry, energy hides in hydrogen's simplicity. Strip an electron here, add one there, and you have a battery. On Earth, some microbes already sip hydrogen the way you sip warm tea, carefully, continuously, with gratitude. They couple its electrons to other reactions, coaxing metabolism out of thin air or, rather, out of thin gas. On this world, the tap never closes. The ocean itself may be a pantry of fuel, each dissolved molecule a ticket to life's quiet carnival. You avoid the word alien because it pushes the mind away. Instead, you say other, and you lean closer. Perhaps the swimmers are not like fish, but like soft sacs of chemistry, diffusing, osmosing, letting gradients guide them. Perhaps they anchor to mineral rafts, thin sheets of ice like clathrates, or drifting polymer webs they secrete the way Earth's plankton secrete mucus nets. In a warm, buoyant ocean, architecture can be delicate and still endure. Pressure usually sounds brutal, but here it is softened by solution. Hydrogen swelling between water molecules pries them apart just enough to keep ice crystals from locking, just enough to keep steam from bolting. The phase diagram that chart scientists draw to tell water how to behave blurs at the edges. Liquidity stretches into regions labeled shouldn't and writes should over them in faint, persistent. Ink. Life prefers ink like that. You think about sound. Hydrogen changes the way waves carry noise. In denser, deeper liquids, sound can travel farther, lower, smoother. A whale's song crosses oceans on Earth. What could cross an ocean hundreds of miles deep? Bioluminescent pulses, slow chemical plumes. Maybe whole forests of living membranes tremble, passing messages through pressure shifts. Communication need not be bright or loud. It can be a hydrogen hush. The ocean might never meet rock. Computer models whisper of depths so great that water turns to high-pressure ices at the base crystalline. Yes, but still laced with hydrogen, still able to trade molecules along faults and fractures. Between liquid layers and ice phases, life could nestle, exploiting gradients of heat and chemistry the way hydrothermal vent communities do in Earth's abyss. It is not the solid ground, you know, but stability comes in many forms. Clouds, too, are part of the ocean when hydrogen rules. Evaporation and condensation blur into dissolution and exsolution. A droplet rising skyward might carry dissolved hydrogen that later rains out as part of a different mixture, feeding cycles unfamiliar to Earth. Methane may join, carbon dioxide may crystallize, diamonds may dapple down, but hydrogen is the carrier, the courier, the breath. You remember how in Chapter 2, a single molecule of dimethyl sulfide felt like a voice. For that voice to carry, it needs a throat. Hydrogen provides it, a vast, resonant column of gas and liquid through which signals can move and linger. Sulfur compounds, carbon chains, little fragments of metabolism, they can traverse this medium like messages in a bloodstream. The planet does not merely have circulation, it is circulation. On Earth, hydrogen is elusive. It slips from our atmosphere to light to be held by gravity for long. Our oceans barely taste it. So you have no instinct for a hydrogen world. Instinct can mislead you. Better to let physics talk. Henry's law says how much gas dissolves in liquid under pressure. Le Chatelier's principle reminds you that systems push back when pushed. Put them together and you get an ocean that swallows hydrogen gladly, then gives it back when the air thins, maintaining balance for eons. In such a stable exchange, metabolism can settle into routines. Imagine microbes that oxidize hydrogen while reducing carbon dioxide, exhaling dimethyl sulfide, or something even stranger. Imagine others that reverse the flow, storing hydrogen when light is scarce, releasing it when energy surges. Food webs could be built on redox couples instead of photosynthesis, or photosynthesis could adapt to red light filtering through ocean and cloud. Pigments tuned like violins to a different key. Hydrogen is flammable in earth air, an agent of explosion, but flammability is context. Without oxygen, there is no flame. Without sparks, there is only potential. Here, hydrogen's temperament is calmer, more monk than match. It carries energy quietly, letting gradients, not conflagrations, do the work. Chemistry does not need fire to forge. It needs difference. Hydrogen supplies that difference in abundance. You pause to feel the scale. An ocean hundreds of miles. Deep means pressure that would crush still, yet chemistry can thrive in films, pores, cracks, membranes. Life's trick is to make small rooms inside big forces. Cell walls, protein cages, lipid bubbles, fortresses built of softness. Hydrogen. Molecules slip through some walls, bounce off others, creating microclimates inside microbodies. Each one is a planet within a planet, ruled by diffusion and desire. Picture currents, slow rivers of dissolved gas sinking in cold zones, rising warm elsewhere, convective loops rolling century after century. Nutrients hitch rides, waste diffusers. Away, in Earth's oceans, upwelling feeds, surface blooms. In this ocean, whole layers may bloom at once, stacked like blankets, each with its own chemistry, its own inhabitants. You drift between them like a sleeper turning over, feeling gradients graze your skin. Even the act of breathing could be different. On Earth, lungs trade oxygen and carbon dioxide. Gills trade dissolved, gases too, but in a narrower range. Here, breathing might mean letting hydrogen in and out through channels, capturing its electrons like catching fireflies in a jar, then releasing the leftover as a different molecule, a different light. Perhaps exhalation here is dimethyl sulfide or methane, or a sulfur compound Earth has never named. You stay anchored to evidence. These ideas are not fantasies thrown at darkness. They are extrapolations from Earth's weird corners. There are microbes in our crust that live on hydrogen. There are clathrate hydrates, ice cages that trap gas. There are high-pressure ices in lab presses. There are solvents other than water that carry life's burden in thought experiments. Hydrogen is not alien, it is early. The universe made oceans of it before it made you. But the world does not belong to chemistry alone. Weather matters. With hydrogen in charge, clouds may tower higher, storms may last longer, yet violence may be muted by viscosity and mass. Lightning might be rare, or it might dance differently, discharging through layers of varying composition. In such storms, molecules mix and match, forming transient compounds that rain out like gifts, feeding the next cycle. You wonder how light penetrates. Red dwarf starlight is dimmer, redder. Hydrogen scatters blue poorly, but lets red slide deeper. The ocean might glow, not from sunlight, but from chemistry, a dim ember of exothermic reactions. Perhaps only the shallows ever see true starlight, and deeper realms live by geothermal glow, by chemical spark, by borrowed heat. Still, warmth is there, and warmth plus solvent plus time is the recipe you keep reciting. What of taste? Not on your tongue, but in the way receptors bind. Proteins or their analogues must fold, must interact with hydrogen's omnipresence. Binding sites could evolve to prefer or avoid the smallest molecule, shaping biochemistry down to the level of a single proton. Proton gradients already power your own cell's mitochondria. On this world, gradients could be steeper, wider, architected on planetary scales. Every membrane a dam, every ion channel a turbine. Hydrogen's story is also history. The early universe was mostly hydrogen and helium. Heavier elements came later. A hydrogen world is, in a sense, primordial, yet here it hosts mature complexity. That contrast soothes you. Simplicity does not preclude sophistication, it frames it. A child's lullaby can carry emotions an opera cannot. A hydrogen ocean can harbor intricacies your nitrogen-oxygen world only hints at. The feedback loop closes. Hydrogen can carry both. Tomorrow, starfire, a red dwarf, is a candle cupped in two careful hands, its flame trimmed low so it can last through nights you cannot imagine. You float in that dim glow now, feeling how small can mean steady, how faint can mean forever. The star that feeds K218b is not a roaring bonfire like your sun. It is a banked ember, burning hydrogen with thrift, sipping rather than gulping. Turning fuel into light with monkish patience, you let the numbers ease past. You like beads on a slow rosary. Mass, less than half your sun. Luminosity, a fraction, gentle, red-leaning, rich in infrared. Lifespan, not billions, but trillions of years, so long that the universe itself will change character before such a star grows old. While your sun is midlife, this dwarf is a child, promising to outlive empires, epochs, elements, rearranged in that crimson light. Evolution is not rushed. On Earth, it took close to 4 billion years to go from chemistry to consciousness, from single cells to cities. Here, the clock stretches, elastic, generous. If life begins, it need not sprint. It can amble, pause, retry, diversify in slow spirals. Mistakes are less fatal when the lamp above never flickers, when winter is not cosmic but merely seasonal, and seasons themselves may blur into long, warm epochs. But a small star has tempers, too. You remember how red dwarfs can tantrums that spike radiation, drench worlds in charged particles, peel at atmospheres if they are thin. So you hold the tension, longevity paired with volatility. Then you let the planet's hydrogen cloak step forward in your mind, thick as a storm jacket, shrugging off bursts, diffusing damage, turning lethal spikes into manageable ripples. The choreography is slow but includes sudden leaps. The atmosphere learns to catch without breaking. You imagine the star's surface as a churning pond of plasma, convective cells rising and sinking, magnetic fields twisting like braided ropes. Occasionally the rope snaps, releasing energy in a flash, an X-ray sigh, an ultraviolet shout. On Earth, such a shout could strip ozone. On K218b, The shout meets depth, many layers of gas, oceans to swallow particles, possibly planetary magnetic fields to steer storms aside. A flare becomes a lesson instead of an extinction. Light from a red dwarf is redder, yes, but also richer in wavelengths water and hydrogen gladly absorb. Photosynthesis, it exists, there would tune pigments to maroon rather than emerald, catching longer photons with chlorophyll cousins. Imagine leaves the color of wine. Mats of microbes, as dark as cranberries, spread beneath shallow hydrogen seas, converting red light to sugar in unhurried rituals. Even without photosynthesis, infrared warmth drives convection, mixes fluids, keeps gradients alive. Energy trickles, but it does not stop. Patience becomes planet-wide policy. Geological time, too, could extend. A large planet cools slowly. A small star heats gently. Internal heat, tidal kneading from a close orbit, and radioactive decay could sustain tectonics or deep convection far beyond Earth's schedule. Countenance if any might drift at the pace of meditation, not frantic plate collisions, giving ecosystems eras to adapt instead of centuries. You measure Earth's brief flame against this nearly eternal ember, and you feel your shoulders unclench. Your species often behaves like time is scarce. Under a red dwarf, time spills like honey. That viscosity changes everything. Genetic experiments can run long, branching into forms patience alone can shape. Organisms with life cycles measured in centuries, symbioses as intricate as lace. Ecologies that shift with the deliberateness of glaciers yet without the cold. Even disease changes pace. Viruses that rely on rapid turnover might languish. Immune strategies could be architectural rather than reactive, building biochemical fortresses instead of launching chemical arrows. In the warm, steady sea, predators may learn to graze gently rather than strike, because scarcity seldom bites when energy flows slow and sure. Yet, you do not romanticize. A red dwarf can dim for long spells. Star spots the size of worlds can blot light, introduce decades of coolness. But again, the atmosphere, the ocean, the mantle are buffers. Thermal inertia smooths star spot, winters into mild dusk. Life could retreat a layer deeper, slow metabolism, then rise again without catastrophic loss. Slowness is resilience. Flares bring radiation, and radiation brings mutation. In moderation, mutation is spice the random kicks that evolution uses to explore the landscape of possibility. A long-lived star that flares now and then is like a teacher tapping the board, making sure attention doesn't drift. Each tap jars genomes, not enough to shatter, enough to stir innovation. The line between harm and help is thin, but time thickens it, giving selection space to sift. You crouch by the star in imagination and watch hydrogen fuse to protons overcoming repulsion, merging, releasing a positron, a neutrino, a photon, that will random walk for millennia before escaping. In your sun, this happens in a hot, dense heart. In a dwarf, the core is cooler, the pressure lower, the rate slow, yet slow is certain. Like a candle wick trimmed close, it smoulders, but never gutters, trillions of years. The phrase folds you into it. Dinosaurs, ice ages, entire continents form and erode inside a sliver of that span. Civilizations could rise, fall, rise again, learn the same stars by different myths countless times. Or no civilization, just coral reef, complexity scaled too. Planetary oceans, incrementally rearranged by currents that take millennia to turn over. How many lifetimes can unfold when the clock refuses to hurry? You ask, and the star hums without answering. Because it has no need to hurry either. Astronomers classify, compare, catalogue, M-type this, flare index that. You respect the labels, but tonight you prefer metaphors. A monk in a cold chapel, yes, counting prayers of fusion. A hearthstone glowing while the house forgets winter. A pilot light in a cosmic kitchen, waiting for a pan that will finally sizzle. Words that wrap patience in warmth, let you sleep smoother. Still, the choreography matters. Star, planet, atmosphere, ocean, magnetosphere partners in a dance that must not misstep too often. The planet likely spins once every 33 days, I locked to the star. Tidal forces needed it until rotation matched orbit, a slow twirl. Before a steady partner, that same twirling may stir its interior, helping it hold a magnetic field. A magnetic field is a shield, a way to shepherd stellar wind around and away, a deflector cloak stitched from iron flows, gravity, magnetism, heat threads in the same patient fabric. Before you go, you think of color. Red dwarfs emit light your eyes would call dim, but if you lived there, your eyes might have evolved wider pupils, more rods, pigments attuned to crimson. Night would not be black, it would be deep wine. Day would not glare, it would blush. Under that palette, creatures might communicate in reflectance shifts invisible to your spectrum, or in heat patterns sensed more than seen. The star's softness breeds subtler languages. You also think of the end. Our sun will swell, swallow Mercury, maybe Earth, shed outer layers, leave a white dwarf ember. A red dwarf will never become a red giant in the same way. It will fade directly to a white dwarf, having mixed its core thoroughly, burning uniformly. It will not flash in death. It will sigh. That sigh will come when the cosmos is an elder. Galaxies sluggish, stars sparse. Life under such a star could witness errors you cannot frame, could adapt to a universe whose background has cooled to whispers. You hold that silence like a shell to your ear and listen. It is not empty, it is full of possibility so stretched out that urgency dissolves. Imagine thinking in projects that take 1,000,000 years, in art carved from ecosystems, in memories carried not by individuals, but by lineages that treat DNA as scripture and mutate it as prayer. The star allows that scale. All the while, gravity does its quiet work, holding plasma to core, holding planet to orbit, holding atmosphere to surface. Weight is the price of time here, and the planet pays it gladly. Triple Earth gravity presses hard, but hard means held. The stronger the hug, the slower the letting go. Air stays, water stays, heat stays, possibility stays. You close your eyes on the image of that tiny sun, steady and stubborn, and feel how your own heartbeat mimics its rhythm slowed by calm, regular, nearly endless in the scale of a single night. The monk keeps praying in fusion syllables. The chapel stays warm. The faithful microbial or otherwise keeps singing beneath hydrogen roofs, somewhere below. In those oceans, pressure will become story, and gravity will become ground. A red dwarf's habitable zone hugs close, like a child pressed to a parent's knee. Close orbits mean short years, 33 days for K218b, and that nearness deepens tides, tightens gravitational wells, and stretches the idea of season. Here, seasons are not tilted swings but magnetic moods, flare cycles, decades, long dimmings and brightenings. Climate rides those moods, buffered by depth and density, so life can surf ripples rather than survive tsunamis. Because the star is dim, the Goldilocks zone widens in time, if not in distance. The dwarf brightens so slowly that habitability becomes a corridor through epochs, not a narrow ring in space. Worlds can drift a little and remain cozy. Others farther out may thaw in the far future, receiving invitations billions of years late. Under such patience, evolution gets rehearsal time, backup plans, second drafts, ultraviolet trickles instead of floods, so fatalysis, spliting molecules acts like a careful sculptor, not a hammer. Methane lingers, dimethyl sulfide endures, carbon dioxide cycles without being shredded. The star's spectrum paints the planet's palette, deciding which gases glow in infrared, which sink, which rise, and always you return to duration, longevity. Is kindness, mistakes become edits, not endings. You smile at that writer's comfort mirrored in biology's lab. When sleep finally pulls at you, you feel an invisible tether from ember to world. Light guides, but gravity holds, and holding shapes what comes next. Air thick as quilts, oceans deep as cathedrals, steps heavy as promises. It waits, constant and unseen. The slow pulse beneath every orbit there gently. Weight settles over you like a quilt sewn from stone and sky. 3 times your earthly pull, yet nothing here calls it punishment. Gravity on this world is a firm hand on your shoulder, not to push you down, but to keep you close to warmth, close to water, close to the slow chemistry that needs time to weave itself into meaning. You imagine waking here. Your first breath is thicker, syrupy with hydrogen, your ribs learning a deeper rhythm. Muscles answer the floor's insistence, knees bending, calves burning, but soon strength arrives in places you never noticed on Earth. Slowness becomes style. Each step is a considered sentence, each reach a paragraph. Your whole body an essay on patience. Gravity, you remember, is not a thing but a curved space itself, bowing under mass. This planet's mass is generous, 8.5 Earths worth, folding space-time a little tighter, inviting everything to stay. Air stays, oceans stay, heat lingers like tea in a heavy mug. Even light, passing through the atmosphere, loses a fraction of its haste, scattering, warming, feeding the cradle you pictured in earlier chapters. On Earth, air slips away, molecule by molecule, a long leak into night. Here, the leak is sealed. Triple gravity binds the hydrogen cloak, locks it to the surface, the way a parent locks a window on a windy night. Solar flares may shove, stellar winds may hiss, but the atmosphere holds. Escape velocity is a tall wall. Only the fastest passengers vault it. Everything else circles back, returns, recycles. You picture roots under such pull. In soil, if soil exists, they would dive deeper, thicker, anchoring not just against wind, but against weight. In water, fins would push harder, muscles braided tight, movements short and efficient. Buoyancy helps, yes, but even buoyancy bows to gravity's tone. Life here would sculpt itself into low, sturdy forms, sprawling mats, broad limbs, dense tissues, architecture designed for staying put. Yet heaviness is not hostility. It is invitation to intimacy. To grow tall here would be rare. To grow wide, common. Communities might huddle, organisms nesting into each other's strength, lattice of support spreading like reefs or mycelial webs. The planet teaches collaboration. By simple insistence, alone you sag. Together you brace. Your mind drifts to mountains. Can they rise under such pressure? Perhaps not as knife-edged peaks, but as plateaus, domes, gentle swells. Tectonic plates, if they slide, would move with muffled clacks, their collisions absorbed by weight. Erosion would be steady, gravity tugging every grain downhill with more conviction. Valleys could fill with sediments rich in nutrients, basins becoming cradles for layered ecosystems that barely lift their heads but spread for miles. Inside, gravity squeezes, cores compact, molecules crowd, phases change. High-pressure ice forms. At depth, but above it, liquid persists, drawn tight yet not frozen. Minerals melt and convect sluggishly. The planet's interior heartbeats slower, heavier, but dependable. Volcanism, if present, might ooze rather than explode lava, crawling like honey across warm plains, feeding chemosynthetic life instead of scouring it away. Think of breathing again. Dense air presses against every surface. Diffusion is slower. Convection more decisive. Lungs, if anything like lungs evolve, would be bellows built stout, pumping deliberate drafts. Or perhaps life abandons lungs, lets gases slip straight across moist membranes, using surface area over speed. Gills, filaments, porous skins designs that allow gravity to push molecules in as much as organisms pull. You hold a rock in your palm on Earth and feel its honest tug. Here, that rock would feel like 3. To pick it up is to negotiate. Tools, if they are ever made, would be low, rolling, levered, flight. Unlikely, unless air is thick enough to keep wings aloft with small flaps and large spans. But soaring would cost too much. Better to glide close to surfaces, to skim like skates on a pond. Perhaps balloons of hydrogen could float lighter than the surrounding mix, but even then, gravity would argue every meter. Water responds wonderfully. Waves slump lower, but their mass carries more momentum. Currents dig deep, grooves etched. Slow. Sediments settle faster, clearing water, letting light stride farther down. Clarity invites photosynthesis at depth, pigments tuned to red light, mats spreading like velvet over warm slopes. Gravity clarifies as it confines. Chemistry under weight takes different routes. Solubility shifts, reaction rates adjust. Heavy atmospheres allow exotic aerosols to persist, droplets falling in lazy curtains rather than sharp rain. Precipitation becomes more than weather. It becomes transport, hauling dissolved metals, sulfur compounds, nutrients, and stories from sky to sea. Each drop hits harder, but every surface is ready for it. You sit with the thought that your own skeleton would need rewriting. More calcium, more crosslinks, curved bones built to distribute force. Joints might become wider, cartilage thicker, tendons like braided cables. Your posture would tilt forward, closer to ground, closer to other lives. Eye lines lower, attention on textures and tiny movements, on chemistry in puddles and whispers. In currents. Gravity also sculpts time. Movements slow, but perception stretches. When haste is punished, patience is rewarded. A seed might take decades to push a few centimeters, a colony centuries to sprawl across a basin. Evolution, though, can still race in microbes, in chemical cycles, at scales gravity scarcely notices. Slowness above, swiftness below a layered tempo orchestra. Under such a firm hand, waste cannot wander far. Dead matter settles quick, nutrients descend, food webs stacked close. Scavengers become essential, recycling loops tight, efficient. On Earth, wind can scatter. Here, wind hugs. Ecosystems become vertical speeches, surface baskers, mid-layer grazers, deep digesters, each linked by the certainty that nothing floats away for long. You realize that gravity is a guardian at the gate. It keeps riches in, dangers out. Atmospheric escape, guarded, rapid climate swings, dampened by mass, stellar tantrums, muted by depth. The price is weight, but the reward is retention. Life on Earth learned to cope with scarcity by speed. Here it may learn to cope with abundance. By care, the guardian, though, is impartial. Meteors strike with more energy, their fall accelerated, their shock waves heavier. But the atmosphere, deep and thick, is an armor. Most stones burn to ash, bright scars smeared thinly across the sky. Those that make it through dig but cannot disperse ejecta as far. Local wounds heal behind curtains of vapor and sediment. You think of sound again. Gravity loads the air. Pressure shapes acoustics. Voices, if there are voices, could be low, resonant, bass like whale song, traveling dense medium with grace. Communication might be felt as much as heard, vibrations in water or ground radiating like heartbeat drums. Underweight, touch becomes a language, pressure, gradients, a script. In all this, you still sense softness. Because gravity's strength is constant, life adapts until the burden is just background, like Earth's 1G is to you. After acclimation, heaviness becomes home. Hearts pump harder but grow strong. Cells brace but remain supple. Structures squat but spread beauty along the ground. The planet's embrace teaches resilience without cruelty. You return to hydrogens. Quilt and the red dwarf's candle and see how gravity stitches them together. Without this pull, the blanket would slip, the candle's warmth would leak, the ocean would thin to mist. With it, all three collaborate. Star gives, atmosphere guards, gravity holds, ocean answers. Habitability is not a single gift. It is a chorus, and gravity sings the bass line. What of you, walking there? You would kneel more, crawl sometimes, find joy in contact. Jumping would be a laughable act, but rolling, sliding, floating in thick water would feel like flying. Play finds a way. Perhaps life there plays by building labyrinths in sediments, by sending chemical flares through currents, by weaving mats that billow like flags in slow tides. As sleep draws closer, you feel your own body's weight against the mattress, gravity's whisper in your blood. It is gentle because you have learned it from birth. The alien pull is an echo, louder but with the same melody. You are reminded that comfort can wear pressure as clothing, that security can feel like a hand on your back. Under such a firm hand, how deeply can roots or fins grow? You let the question settle without answering. It will bloom in the next darkness. When the planet turns and shows you how day and night can both be permanent and yet still share their warmth, and as you drift, you sense the edge of that division. One hemisphere lit forever, the other in endless dusky yet, bridged by winds and waters that refuse to choose a side. Between those halves, a twilight ribbon circles endlessly, warm enough to wander, dim enough to dream. You will walk it slowly, counting stars that never set and winds that never sleep, listening for balance stitched into every gust and ripple tonight. The planet turns once for every orbit, and then it stops locked, not in stillness, but in devotion. One hemisphere kneels to the star forever, bathed in endless ruddy noon. The other bows to darkness, a night that never ends. You stand at the boundary and feel the world's breath, a steady river of air that runs from blaze to shadow, a planetary sigh that never pauses. Here, day and night are not hours but continents, and you wander their coasts as if walking the edge of two oceans, on the day side. Light is a constant companion, but never the glare of your own sun at zenith. The red dwarf's glow is dimmer, warmer, like late afternoon preserved in amber. Clouds pile high, towering anvils of vapor rising where oceans exhale. Heat lifts water, turns it to mist, paints halos around everything. You squint through rose haze and watch steam drift upward, knowing that each molecule will ride the wind toward the other side, carrying the gift of warmth like a courier with pockets full of summer. Past the terminator, the great circle of eternal. Dust the air is thinner of light, but not of life. Winds, thick with stolen heat, pour into the night like blankets unfurled. They sink, cool, and settle, releasing their cargo as rain or frost, depending on altitude and cloud. You curl on this dark shore and hear the long journey in every gust, a low hum that has crossed half a world. The night is not frigid, it is hushed. Stars crowd the sky in impossible numbers, and somewhere behind them, the star you left on the horizon still burns, unseen but felt. Tidal locking sounds like a prison, but here it is, a rhythm. The same face always forward, the same face always away, yet circulation refuses to obey that simple split. Air loops, water loops, even geological stresses loop, kneading the world into balance. Think of a rotisserie turning a roast, but the heat lamp stays still. The juices inside still move, equalizing flavor. That is this planet, an internal stirring that keeps extremes from becoming tyrants. You feel the Coriolis force tilt the winds, sideways, carving jet streams that curl around the globe. They trace luminous paths in the upper atmosphere, visible as faint bands of condensation when the angle is right. Below, slower currents crawl, dragging moisture feet first into night, then back again as vapor, drizzle, or fog. The planet is a conveyor, its belt made of air. Every parcel of gas is a traveler with a ticket from blazing dawn to velvet dusk. On the bright side, oceans simmer but do not boil, thanks to the greenhouse quilt you met before. Evaporation is a gentle thief, never greedy, stealing only what currents can carry. Along coastlines, you see plumes rivers of steam rising like prayers. Inland, if there is land, mirages ripple, but soil holds its moisture. Shaded by clouds that refuse to disperse because the heating never relents. Plants, if they exist, may be low and waxy, guarding water the way desert succulents do on Earth. But without the rush of sunrise or panic of sunset. Walk toward night and feel pressure swell. Cooling air contracts, becoming heavier, sinking down. Valleys and into basins, fog pools in hollows, lakes mirror starlight. Ice might lace mountaintops if any rise here. But in lowlands the thick air keeps water liquid, surface skin chilled, depths still warm. You imagine creatures whose metabolism runs on gradients, warm-blooded on one side, cool-skinned on the other, flipping orientation as they migrate slowly between half-worlds, always surfing the edge where comfort lingers. At the terminator, twilight is not a moment but a geography, a ring circling the planet, neither day nor night, just endless evening. Here the winds meet, collide, and rise, forming a perpetual band of clouds that glows like a dim halo. Rain may fall in soft sheets, constant as a heartbeat. The ground, always damp, could host sprawling mats of life that drink from mist more than soil, spreading wide because upward growth is costly under high gravity. You run a hand through imagined tendrils slick with dew, feel them pulse faintly with chemical signals shared. Along their length, you look up and notice that the star never moves. It hangs, heavy and red, fixed in the same slice of sky. On the night side, constellations are statues, unblinking. Time is told not by rising suns, but by tides in the air, by slow oscillations in wind speed, by cycles of storm and calm that last months, years, maybe centuries. Clocks tick in weather here, not in light. The physics is simple but feels profound in the body. With one face always heated, pressure gradients arise. Hot air expands, cool air contracts. Nature hates imbalance, so flow begins thermal tides. Marching from noon to midnight. Add rotation and the flows curve. Add topography and they split and braid. The result is an atmospheric engine that runs without stopping, a circulation cell stacked upon another, looping like ribbons around a gift you are only beginning to open. You do not solve the equations. You feel their solution brushing your cheek. Ice, if it forms on the night side, does not stay forever. Winds nibble its edges, sublimation lifts it, lofts it back toward light, where it can melt and fall again elsewhere. Nothing is static for long, even in darkness. You think of glaciers, on Earth grinding mountains. Here, frost may instead etch patterns in dust, lace across puddles, then vanish in a vapor sigh, writing and erasing its signature each cycle. The day hemisphere wears clouds like veils. Without sunsets, color gradients paint the same scene constantly. But your eyes never tire because tiny changes matter. Thickness, height, texture of cloud. Maybe lightning flickers inside those veils, invisible in daylight but sending thunder rolling into twilight lands. Long, low rumbles that shake mats of sleeping organisms or lull them deeper. If familiarity breeds comfort, on the night hemisphere, auroras might shimmy, fed by the star's wind threading through magnetic lines. Their hues could expand beyond green, bathing landscapes in slow waves of color. Even in darkness, spectacle finds a way. Bioluminescence, two organisms flashing at one another like lazy Morse code blue. Teal, crimson, depending on chemistry and need. You think of culture, if minds evolve here. The day dwellers might build myths of a still sun. The night dwellers, myths of fixed stars. The twilight folk could bridge them, traders of information and goods, storytellers who walk the ring and return with news. Maps would be circular, timescales cyclical. Festivals might follow great storms completing a circuit, or calm belts shifting latitudes. Measurement would tie to wind, not shadow. The concept of east and west dissolves. Instead, toward light and toward dark rule. Every journey described by how many degrees around the planet you travel along twilight. How many leagues you dare into noon, how many nightside valleys you cross before frost bites toes. Exploration would be half meteorology, half pilgrimage. Now, let your thoughts drop beneath waves. Currents mimic the sky, warm water outward from the substellar point, sinking as it cools, sliding back along the bottom to reheat. Thermaline on Earth moves sluggishly. Here, hydrogen solubility, pressure, and temperature craft more exotic loops. Nutrient cycle in spirals, eddies feeding eddies. In the dim shallows of twilight, planktonic fields could bloom forever, never. Scorched, never starved. Just brushed by light enough to live. Storms gather where flows collide. Perpetual thunderheads ringing the terminator. Cyclones anchored like standing waves, their eyes wandering slowly with long-term fluctuations in heat, but gravity damps fury. Winds roar less easily in thick air. So even storms are meditative, slow rolling drums instead of snapping snares. In this split world, symmetry comforts you. Heat out, cold in, repeat. Every parcel of gas or drop of water eventually tours both realms, like a pilgrim seeking balance. Entropy increases, yes, but the path there is scenic. Equilibrium is never reached. Instead, homeostasis dances a dynamic steadiness, not a flat line. You reach for analogy, a loaf baking with one side near the fire, the other in shade, yet convection within keeps the crumb even. Or a body in a hot bath with a cool towel on. The forehead, blood-shuttling warmth to chill and back. Or a song with two notes held forever while harmonies weave between them. The planet is all of these, and your mind relaxes into the metaphor's arms. Crepuscular zones attract Earth's life dawn, and dusk teem with activity. Here, crepuscular is permanent. Eyes might evolve to savor dim contrast, ears to pass windborne, cues skins to feel minute shifts in humidity. Chemistry would track dew point the way you track time, adjusting enzyme rates as mist thickens or thins. Life becomes a musician of gradients, playing tunes on the strings stretched between light and dark. You can almost smell the air, metallic on the bright side, where photochemistry cooks new compounds. Earthy in twilight, rain-soaked and mild, crisp on the night side, faintly sweet with exhaled gases accumulating before winds carry them away. Dimethyl sulfide lingers, perhaps, mixed with methane. A faint perfume looping the globe. Your pillow cools as you think of cooling currents, and you tuck the blanket higher as you imagine updrafts. Bedtime mirrors climate, small loops imitating large ones. The planet's comfort, like yours, depends on circulation. Stillness is stagnation. Motion is maintenance. Between the halves lies opportunity. Who walks there? Perhaps creatures that never pick a side, that graze on dayborn vapors and nightborn frost alike. Perhaps intelligent beings, if they come, build cities along this ring, harnessing perpetual wind for energy, harvesting constant cloud for water, pointing telescopes forever at a motionless star, and still finding surprise in its subtle moods. As your breathing slows, a new curiosity condenses on the edge of thought. If winds can ferry warmth, what else do they carry? Carbon chains, methane haze, tiny crystals grown in upper air. Imagine rain that is not water, but glittering carbon, pressure sculpted into diamond dust. Imagine fogs of hydrocarbons rolling like slow incense across the night. The sky becomes a chemist's workshop, the clouds are mine. You listen to the wind again and almost hear that brittle shimmer. Let your eyelids fall on twilight and dream of storms that smell of carbon and shine like gemstones in the dark. Carbon snow begins, not in clouds but in pressure, where carbon atoms crowd so tightly they choose the lattice of a gem. You imagine the upper air as a quiet workshop, thin and cold, turning stray carbon into specks of diamond that drift like glitter. Then gather mass as they fall through thicker, warmer layers. No jeweler waits below, only currents and chemistry, only organisms that might use those crystals the way your world uses dust surfaces for droplets to cling to. Seeds for reactions to start. Methane moves differently. It pools and swirls in the hydrogen air like pale fog, invisible to eyes tuned for blue, but obvious to instruments that taste infrared. On Earth, methane is a breath from wetland mud and ruminant bellies, a byproduct of microbes that eat without oxygen. Here, it could be lifeblood or leftover, exhale or exhaust. You sip the idea as though inhaling steam from a strange tea, sweet, sharp, with a memory of lightning dot, clouds become caravans. They do not just deliver water, they ferry molecules between realms, trading carbon for sulfur, hydrogen for nitrogen, dissolving, precipitating, reshaping the planet's chemical ledger with every lap around the globe. You picture a droplet rising on the dayside, loaded with methane, picking up a diamond seed, then gliding into twilight where temperature shifts coax out new compounds. When it falls in darkness, it splashes into an ocean already simmering with possibilities. The cycle is not rain, then drain. It is story, then re-story. Pressure writes strange poetry. At certain heights, carbon dioxide may harden into crystal, while deeper down it dissolves like sugar again. Ammonia would dominate in a sterile world. But here it is, scares you. Remember that from earlier spectra, perhaps scrubbed by life, perhaps locked in minerals. Its absence is a stanza left blank, making the presence of methane and dimethyl sulfide stand louder, like bold ink on parchment. You listen for thunder, lightning between layers doped with methane and hydrogen would carve the air with plasma strokes, forging nitriles, complex organics, droplets tinted faintly amber. Earth has tholins on Titan tar like films made by ultraviolet and electric sparks. This planet may paint its own version, rain them down as tender food for early metabolisms, a chemical porridge stirred by storms. Every flash is a chemist's signature, every rumble a promise of new feedstock. Diamond rain sounds opulent, but gravity here makes it practical. Dense gems drop like hail, sink, perhaps melt into carbon-rich pools, or embed in soft sediments, waiting to catalyze reactions. Life, if clever, could colonize their facets, biofilms anchoring to crystalline planes the way bacteria cling to sand. Light refracts through them in the shallow ocean, scattering red starlight into spectral crumbs. Little rainbows that never reach a sky dot in your mind. You tilt your head back and let methane mist settle on your face. You smell nothing. Methane is scentless to you, but instruments would read it as lines in a spectrum, notches of lost light. To microbes, though it is lunch or breath, some may inhale methane and exhale dimethyl sulfide. Others may perform the reverse, completing loops that keep the air balanced. A cloud, then, is not just weather. It is a banquet hall filled with invisible plates. Hydrogen's presence makes everything softer. Droplets fall slower. Convection moves thicker columns. Reactions linger. Time inside a storm stretches. What would be a half-hour squall on Earth could be a week-long sigh here. The same anvil cloud blooming and subsiding in meditative pulses. During those pulses, chemistry has time to settle into niches. Droplets coalesce around diamond dust. Sulfur compounds dissolve and re-evaporate. Molecules meet, part, meet again. You imagine standing in twilight during such a storm. Diamonds so small they feel like silk brush your skin. Methane haze thickens the air to a fine milkiness. Lightning glows, muted, a lantern behind gauze. Rain tastes different, metallic, faintly sweet, charged. Your footsteps leave slow ripples in puddles whose surfaces glisten not with oil but with microcrystals, catching what little light filters in. Sleep comes easy under such steady percussion. Earth taught you that clouds sculpt climate. Here, they sculpt possibility. By reflecting or trapping heat, by raining or withholding, they steer evolution's currents as surely as any genetic mutation. High hazes, laced with hydrocarbons, could warm the night side more than expected, stabilizing temperatures further. Low decks of reflective clouds on the day side could prevent overheating. A self-regulating veil woven by physics, perhaps nudged by biology, gods could storms write poetry in molecules you've never spoken. You pause on the question, trace it with your tongue. On Earth, poetry in weather is metaphor. Here, it might be literal. A lightning bolt scrawls a chain of carbon and nitrogen that becomes a metabolic verse. A raindrop carrying dimethyl sulfide seeds a cloud that changes albedo, altering light, altering life's rhythm. Feedback loops become rhymes, meters set by pressure and heat. Wind is the reader that carries the poem around. Jet streams pick up completed lines, deliver them to different latitudes, let them react with new characters. In the perpetual night, long strands of organic haze could drift untouched by photolysis, settling slowly, feeding deep-dwelling communities that never see the star. In the perpetual day, ultraviolet free red light fosters gentle photochemistry, writing softer verses. You taste chemistry in imagination, aldehydes like bruised fruit, sulfides like overripe kelp, hydrocarbons like a faint plastic Thames. The planet's breath would be a complex chord, each molecule a note. On Earth, your nose rarely hears the full song because air is thin and winds are quick. Here, thickness holds harmonies together, lets them resonate until they mean something. More than parts. Diamond, methane, tholin, sulfide call them, cast members. The play needs a stage, temperature gradients, pressure layers, convection cells. It needs an audience, microbes, membranes, mats, and it needs time, which the red dwarf gives freely. So storms rehearse, refine, rediscover. New molecules audition. Some leave, some stay, some become essential. Gravity, again, is stagehand. It decides how high clouds climb, how fast rain falls, how tightly convection rolls. The hydrogen atmosphere is curtain and acoustics, muting some notes, amplifying others. Nothing acts alone. Everything is ensemble. You settle into that truth the way you settle into sheets. The comfort is in the layering dot in the high sky. Methane's photolysis, even under redder light, can spawn radicals fragments, hungry for partners. They dip into lower layers, snatch sulfur bits, create unfamiliar hybrids. On Titan, orange smog cloaks the world. Here, perhaps the smog is translucent, pearl grey, because hydrogen dilutes pigments, or because diamond dust scatters light differently. You imagine looking up and seeing a sky with depth, not just blue or black, but straighter like watercolor washes. Rain is narrative. First come the light hydrocarbons, condensing high, falling like whispers. Then heavier products coalesce, drizzle thicker. Finally, somewhere in the column, carbon shifts state, clicking into diamond, falling like punctuation. Marks, the ground receives everything, mixes, stores, releases. Oceans redistribute. The cycle spins. Do organisms climb into clouds? On Earth, bacteria hitch rides in droplets, influencing when and where rain falls. Perhaps life here too has found ways to ascend, to seed, to guide. A dimethyl sulfide burst could summon clouds over nutrient-poor seas, directing rainfall like an irrigation chant. Intentional or emergent, the effect is the same. Weather participates in life, life participates in weather. You let that entanglement lull you. Complexity is soothing when it is coherent. Each molecule's journey makes sense. When you trace it slowly, you fall asleep in the middle of a reaction pathway, comfortable because the next step is gentle. A collision, a bond, a release of heat too small to notice but large enough, scaled up to warm a world. Somewhere above, diamonds are still forming. Somewhere below, methane is still being eaten. Somewhere at the terminator, a cloud is birthing and dying in the same hour. You lie between those sums, feeling potential like pressure on your EAR-DRUMS. Statistics are not thunderclaps. They are raindrops, counted patiently until a pattern appears. 3 sigma 99.7% means the storm is almost certainly real, not a trick of glare or noise. You picture 1,000 clouds measured, only 3 misread. The thought is tender, not triumphant. It says, rest, this signal will hold till morning. But it also whispers, check again, because humility is part of the weather too. Instruments wobble, models assume, humans hope. So you run controls like gardeners, pull weeds carefully, endlessly, because harvest depends on vigilance. You feel. The comfort of error bars the way you feel the weight of blankets-defined edges around soft interiors. A value with a margin is a hearth with a screen. The fire warms, the mesh protects. You can sleep near it. Tomorrow you'll wake and test the logs again, but tonight you let the glow be enough outside. Diamond drizzle ticks faintly on surfaces you cannot see. Inside, numbers tick on spreadsheets you will not open now. Between them, your heartbeat finds the same tempo. Molecules poet, math confirms 2 halves of the same lullaby. And beyond the math, a question hovers. Who first taught you to trust light, and who will teach you to answer it? You learn to trust numbers the way sailors trust stars, by repetition, by calm skies, by storms survived. Tonight, you let statistics tuck you in. 3 sigma, they whisper, 99.7%. Almost certain, almost sure, a lullaby of likelihood that warms the room without pretending to be the sun. You do not need perfection to sleep. You need a margin wide enough to cradle questions without letting them fall. Science does not slam doors. It closes them gently, leaves a finger in the frame. Probability is that finger, a soft resistance against haste. You picture a histogram as a row of candles, their heights flickering, their centers glowing. The signal stands taller than the noise, 3 standard deviations high. You could still mistake a shadow for a shape, but it grows unlikely, like rolling. Snake eyes again and again until boredom, not doubt, stops you. Sigma is simply distance measured in uncertainty units. Gather data, fit a model, watch residuals scatter around the line you drew. Most points hug close, a few wander. The width of that wandering is your standard deviation. 3 times that width away stands your peak. Stand there and you are inside. A confidence valley, steep sides, narrow exit. You breathe easier in valleys. You remember flipping coins as a child, the thrill when heads appeared 5 times straight. Later, you learned that streaks happen, patterns emerge from chance, illusions of meaning painted by random hands. Statistics is how you teach your eyes to wait. 3 sigma says, this streak is too long for luck. The universe is probably actually humming here. The comfort is in the math, but the math is human, written on late nights with coffee rings on paper. Behind every sigma lies a dataset cleaned by hands, code written by minds, choices about bins and baselines, calibrations and cuts. You honor that labor by not worshipping the number blindly. It is a compass, not a cage. Crickets hum outside your window, repetitive, soothing, background truth. That is what AP value can be, a low murmur that says, noise would rarely. Sing this loud. You do not memorize formulas tonight. You trace their shapes the way fingers trace old scars. Gaussian bells, error functions, likelihood surfaces shaped like gentle bowls. Your inner ear hears those curves as music. Confidence. Intervals are blankets with edges stitched by sample size. More data, tighter stitching, fewer points, looser hems. You do not scold a loose blanket, you layer another on top. Webb's instruments add layers, multiple transits, multiple wavelengths, independent pipelines. Each layer narrows the draft. Under the door, you think of sigma levels in particle physics. 5 for discovery, 3 for whisper. Astronomers borrow the language, but keep the tone softer. Space is messy. Signals are faint. One telescope's speckle is another's planet. So 3 sigma here is not a trumpet, but a humming bowl, resonant, persistent. It invites replication, not resignation. Replication is science's way of dreaming the same dream twice and checking if the colors match. Different teams, different codes, different assumptions. They all land near the same mean. You exhale. If not, you sharpen questions, not knives. Sleep requires this kindness toward error. You hold a scatter plot in your mind, points like stars around a line like a Milky Way. The residuals are dust, mostly symmetric, tails thin. Dimethyl sulfide's line is deep, methane's line is broad, ammonia's absence is a gap. Fit them, test them, shake the model and see what falls. What stays is sin, what falls is wish. Noise is never silent. Detectors hiss, cosmic rays prick, pointing wobbles, thermal drift creeps. Pipelines learn to subtract, but subtraction is art, overfit, and you erase truth. Underfit, and you keep ghosts. Statistics is the Goldilocks spoon, enough smoothing to quiet, enough structure to speak. You stir until lumps dissolve but flavor remains. 3 in 1,000. Less than 0.3% becomes metaphor. Imagine a jar of 1,000 marbles, only 3 painted red. You reach in blind, pull one out, likely white, maybe red. Pull again, still white. Pull many, red becomes rare. Now imagine you are not pulling marbles, you are measuring light. Chance can paint a few pixels oddly, but to sculpt a whole spectral line, unlikely enough to trust cautiously. You whisper bays under. Your breath, prior belief matters. How likely did you think life was here before the data? Multiply by likelihood, divide by evidence, get posterior comfort. Bayesian lullabies weigh hope with history, keep excitement from sprinting past reason. You hold your priors light, letting data tilt them, not crush them. Even so, questions linger like silhouettes at the window. Could unknown chemistry mimic biology's scent? Could instrument systematics align by accident? Could solar activity masquerade as molecules? You list them softly, like counting sheep. Each one you nudge into the margin, not erased, just noted. Margins are where poetry lives. Standard deviation, standard error. Their names sound like chores, but they are caretaking. They tidy your conclusions, sweep loose significance into dustpans labeled caution. The act of estimating error is an act of humility. You tuck that humility around you like a shawl. Monte Carlo simulations scatter across your thoughts like confetti. Randomize inputs, rerun models, see how outputs spread. The spread is your friend. Its width is your wakefulness. Tight spread, deep sleep. Widespread, shallow nap. Tonight, the spread is modest. You allow rem.signal to noise ratio. S divided by N. You feel S as a steady heartbeat. N as the white hiss of rain on leaves. Raise S with more data. Lower N with better instruments. Webb did both. Big mirror, cold darkness, long exposures. Sitting 1,000,000 miles out, it reduces Earth's chatter, listens to cosmic whispers. Your faith hangs on that quiet, residual. Plots check honesty. Plot what's left after you're fit. If pattern remains, you fooled yourself. You glance mentally at those plots, see randomness, no lingering wave. Patternless residuals are like a child's even breathing. Reassurance that sleep is true, not feigned. P equals 0.003 is a number. 3 in 1,000 is a story. Stories stick. You translate stats into metaphors because your brain is built for narrative, not integrals. Science sleeps better when wrapped in language it can feel. Numbers are pillows. Metaphors are pillowcases. Even with pillows, you leave a lamp on the lamp of skepticism. It is dim, shaded, but present. Should tomorrow's data widen error bars, you will not feel betrayed. You will adjust the blanket. Should it narrow them, you will smile and maybe turn the lamp lower. Will the next decimal place wake let you drift deeper? You do not. No, that is the honest ending of every figure legend. But knowledge is asymptotic. You approach truth, never collide. The approach is enough to rest on. You trace the Greek letter sigma in the air with a drowsy finger, a curved path, a tail, a symbol that means spread. Spread is life, in data and in genes. Too little, stagnation. Too much, confusion. 3. Sigma is a Goldilocks of belief, firm enough to lean on, soft enough to cushion correction. The telescope sleeps between observations, but its data never do. Servers hum, algorithms churn, students check logs at 3 a.m., professors reread code with morning coffee. The communal vigilance lets you relax alone. Someone is always awake in science. You are allowed to dream. Dreaming, you remember sailors. Stars are guides with known error. Refraction shifts, scintillation twinkles, misread sextants, yet voyages succeeded because margins were known, corrections ready. Sigma is your correction table, your almanac of uncertainty. With it, you sail. 2 alien atmospheres, an anchor by confident shores. When doubt's cold draft creeps under the door, you stuff it with better priors, with more transits, with cross-validated pipelines. You patch leaks, you sand rough edges. Maintenance is not glamorous, but it is how laboratories become bedrooms. Statistics hum like crickets, repetitive, real, easy to ignore until they stop. You listen for silence and hear none. That is reassurance. Should the hum falter, should anomalies cluster, you would rise. Light on, check wiring. But for now, the chorus is steady. The Sigma story, though, is not the end. Numbers say likely, not alive. To move from probability to presence, you will need next instruments, next wavelengths, next ideas. Webb has whispered. Other telescopes will speak, perhaps even show glints of oceans, seasonal shifts, rotating chemistries. Certainty climbs in steps, not leaps. So you let 3 sigma be a step, not a summit. At this height, the view is already vast. Hydrogen seas, dimethyl breaths, diamond storms. Higher will come. Tonight, camp here. Warm hands, share data soup. Tell stories of p-values that misled and margins that saved. Then sleep. As eyelids lower, you feel a new question forming. Quiet as dew. If numbers can cradle you, can mirrors cradle light the same way? Gold segments, coronograph masks, alignment down to nanometers precision as comfort. Tomorrow, you turn from math to metal, from sigma to segments, from certainty's hum to engineering's hush. Let the thought hover, unfinished, like a figure caption trailing off into the next page, inviting you to follow the curve of gold into the dark. Precision itself has a statistic, tolerances. Engineers speak in microns and millikelvin the way. Statisticians speak in sigmors. One mirror misaligned by a virus can smear a spectrum, bloat your error bars, steal your sleep. So they iterate cool, warm, shake. Align, again each rehearsal, narrowing mechanical variance the way more. Data, narrow, mathematical spread. You take comfort in certainty built twice, once in numbers, once in nuts and bolts. Discipline is the same patient virtue wearing 2 uniforms. In the clean room, gloves rustle. In the code room, keys click. In both, doubt is measured, not feared. Even noise budgets have margins, cushions where reality can wiggle without breaking the design. Think of them as engineering's pillows, stuffed with assumptions, fluffed with experience. When launch vibrations rattle, those pillows absorb the tremor. When rays spike detectors, software pillows catch the glitch. Layer by layer, variability is domesticated until the spread is small enough to rock you, not rattle you. And as you drift, you feel the gold mirror waiting ready to cradle the next whisper. Far from the weathered breath of Earth, you drift to a place where sunlight is a managed rumor. 1,000,000 miles out. The telescope rests at El Tutha, quiet balance point where Earth and Sun tug just enough to let stillness happen. There, night is permanent, not because the star is gone, but because a shield the size of a tennis court keeps its blaze politely behind a curtain. In that engineered darkness, gold waits, 18 hexagons, each a petal hammered from beryllium and kissed with microns of gold, unfold in your mind like a slow flower. They were once folded tight, origami in a rocket's nose, hearts pounding, through vibration and flame. Now they are outstretched, catching infrared whispers that human skin cannot feel, holding them the way cupped hands hold warm tea. Each segment must match the others to within tens of nanometers of iris's width, so that the mirror becomes one perfect eye. You picture alignment as meditation. Tiny actuators, back muscles of metal nudge, tilt, push, pull. Engineers send pulses of current. The segments respond like yogis adjusting posture by millimeters until breath flows clean. The mirror learns to see by making a single star into 18, then dragging those ghosts back together until only one point remains. Focus is not automatic. It is earned, patiently, iteratively, as if sharpening a thought at 3 in the morning. Coronographs step in like respectful ushers, raising their hands to block the star that would otherwise drown the planet's murmur. Imagine shading your eyes at sunset so you can glimpse a firefly. Inside Webb masks, with edges cut like mathematical lace, intercept blinding light, while deformable mirrors ripple in counterpatterns to cancel speckles, those false planets birthed by optics. Subtraction becomes revelation. Remove the roar. Receive the whisper. Calibration is choreography. Detectors have moods. Pixels age, respond, glow. Dark current creeps, cosmic rays bite. So before listening to exoplanets sing, the telescope hums, scales, flats, darks, references, standards. Instruments are tuned like violins in the Pitnya spec. Unarakam, Mirich with its timbre, each cooled to temperatures where thermal noise sleeps. Liquid helium, radiators, radiative coolers, an orchestra of cold keeps silence sacred. You imagine holding a laser on a dime on the moon, not blinking. That is pointing stability here. Milliseconds of tolerance, a jitter budget planned like breathing exercises. Reaction wheels spin, gyros whisper. Star trackers read constellations as if reciting bedtime stories. Any tremor, any twitch would smear spectra, widen error bars, waked out. So the observatory drifts with the grace of a jellyfish, pushing against sunlight with tiny thruster puffs. Staying centered in a gravitational eddy. Communication is a soft tether. Coband beams whisper packets back to Earth through deep space. Network dishes that rotate like sleepy heads following a lullaby. On the ground, servers catch bits like snowflakes, archive them, hand them to pipelines that rinse and sort. Somewhere, a graduate student watches a progress bar the way you watch. Embers, willing them not to fade. Data are not just numbers. They are devotions spread across continents. Gold is not vanity, it is function. Infrared loves gold's reflectivity. Molecules in alien skies glow there. Between 0.6 and 28 microns, signatures hide water carving valleys. In spectra, methane nibbling at certain bands, dimethyl sulfide biting faintly at others. The mirror is tuned to that glow the way your ear is tuned to a lover's voice in a crowded room. Material becomes metaphor, precious metal for precious photons. At L2thermal.com reigns. No dawn, no dusk, just a star forever behind, a planet forever beside. Temperature drift is the enemy. Stability is the friend. Multi-layered sunshields unfurl 5 sheets of Kapton, aluminum, silicon each layer. A stage in a whispered cooler game. Heat shed sideways, never forward. Instruments nestle in shadow, hearts beating at 40 Kelvin or less. Cold enough that their own warmth will not drown the cosmos. You think about margins again, engineering, CMOS tolerance stacks, worst-case corners. Designs began decades before launch, contingency upon contingency. Latches built redundant. Software deployments rehearsed like ballet. A single snag could have frozen a wing, blurred a mirror, silenced a dream. That it worked feels like a fairy tale told by torque wrenches, and torque wrenches do not lie. They click. Every photon collected started as chaos in a star's heart. Diffused outward, dodged dust, skirted magnetic fields, survived interstellar emptiness. To waste one by sloppy optics would be a sin of inattention. So Webb catches them with gratitude. Diffraction spikes lace bright stars. Artifacts, yes, but also signatures of alignment, teeth marks of precision. You learn to love them the way you love your own flaws when they prove you are real. Data reduction is a bath drawn to perfect temperature. Too hot over smoothed and details dissolve. Too cold drawn noise chills meaning. Pipelines watch for stray light, for persistence, for latent images. They mask bad pixels, interpolate carefully, flag cosmic ray hits with algorithms that have, themselves, been trained like attentive nurses. In the end, a spectrum emerges. intensity versus wavelength, a skyline of peaks and valleys. You trace each dip like a fingertip over braille, spelling water, methane sulfide, and the spaces where ammonia should be. L2 is not a place but a relationship. It exists because gravity and motion dance. Place the observatory there and it will orbit that empty point, looping around an absence, a halo orbit as lacy as the masks inside. Stability born of imbalancer. Pulls, sun pulls, telescope glides between. You find poetry in that, hanging where nothing is. To hear what everything says, you wonder what future mirrors will open when this one shows us how. Segmented, perhaps larger, certainly, some will. Fly with star shades petaled discs, tens of meters wide, drifting thousands of kilometers away to cast perfect artificial eclipses. Others will unfurl in moonlit craters, mirrors poured from regolith, chilled by eternal night. Maybe swarms of tiny mirrors will link in space, interferometers stitching baselines the size of planets, resolving continents on exo-Earths. But Webb is the bridge. Before it, Hubble saw, invisible, an ultraviolet a glorious gaze, but blind to the warm whispers. Spitzer heard some, but its mirror was small, its time short. Now, with gold and cold and distance, you hear faint heartbeats. After Love War or Habex, might hear lung sounds, metabolic murmurs, countenance turning, seasons shifting. Progress is a ladder of listening back on Earth. Technicians polished each segment, tested it cryogenically, listened to metal shrink and sigh. Human hands cannot touch space's cold, but they can simulate it. You picture the chamber A at Johnson Space Center, a cathedral of vacuum where Webb's instruments slept in rehearsal, sensors reading to see if cold would warp dreams. It didn't. They woke sharp. Coronograph masks remind you of lace veils. Their edges tuned to specific patterns diffract light in carefully managed ways. Engineers used mathematics. You taste like dark chocolate, complex, rich, satisfying. A wrong curve would let starlight leak. A right one will let planets peak. You love that a simple idea block. The star is executed with artful precision. Not a block, but a ballet of interference. Holding a laser on a dime on the moon how. Gyros measure spin. Reaction wheels counter it. Microthrusters whisper corrections. Sensors read, guide stars constantly. Software filters jitter. Control loops close. The observatory exhales warmth, pressure shifts. Structures flex. Even so, the pointing stays. Like a monk holding a pose. Not rigid, but micro-adjusting muscles. No, I can see dot. The mirror's gold is thin hundreds of atoms, deep yet enough. Any more would crack under cold. Any less would dull reflectivity. Thickness, chosen like spice in soup. Too much and flavor is off. Too little and bland. You appreciate that balance, the culinary care of engineers, at night always night. Cosmic rays, pepper detectors, leaving bright flecks. Pipelines erase them. Astronomers note rates, subtract backgrounds, accumulate time. Integration builds signal. Patience builds certainty. You think of watercolorists layering washes, transparent upon transparent, until depth emerges. Webb paints exoplanet spectra the same way. What future mirrors will open? Maybe ones that can null the star entirely, combining light paths so starlight cancels, planet light survives. Maybe mirrors embedded in sails riding photon winds. Maybe quantum detectors counting single infrared photons like heartbeats. Innovation germinates in this darkness. Still, you rest in today's gold, Its roughness at microscopic scales is controlled, its figure measured with interferometers that see nanometers like mountains. Metrology becomes a lullaby word. So does wavefront. So does phasing. When all is phased, the mirror acts as one. When not, each petal is a soloist. Harmony is hard won in metal as in choirs. You smile, remembering the tension of deployment days. Latch by latch, bolt by bolt, live-streamed anxiety. Cheers for a pin pulled, for a panel dropped, for a shield tensioned. Millions watched engineering become theater. When the last segment clicked, a planet somewhere kept breathing, unaware of applause. That humility pleases you. L2 keeps station with minimal fuel efficiency again. Station keeping burns every few weeks, nudge Webb back onto its halo path. Even orbits need reminders. Like habits, they drift without small corrections. Science is habit, corrected often, held by intention. The analogy holds. You drift into it, inside the instruments. Gratings split light, prisms refract. Microshutters open and close like eyelids, letting in specific slices of starshine. Each component whispers, only this, not that, and on the ground you reassemble the whisper into a sentence. Dimethyl sulfide here, ammonia missing there. Stories told in SUBTR ACTIO. CTIO NS. Silence is engineered too. Vibrations from reaction wheels can jitter optics, so they are balanced, isolated. Warm electronics radiate. Radiators dump heat. Everything noisy is banished to the hot side. The cold side is sanctuary. You learn to love that word in hardware. Sanctuary.gold, mirrors gather, math soothes, and cold cradles you. You drift toward sleep on layers of precision. Yet a question glows like a last photon on the sensor edge. When mirrors gift you atmospheres, what will reveal the surfaces beneath? Tomorrow you will follow shadows and transits, reading worlds in their brief eclipses. For now, stay with the gold and the quiet point. Breathe, listen, beyond the mask. A faint dip is forming, ready to lead you on, softly onward. A planet slips across its star, and, for a breath, the universe is a flipbook in your hands. One frame, full light. Next frame, a tiny dip. Another, colors shift, as if someone slid a filter across the lens. You lean in, eyes soft, counting photons the way you might count slow heartbeats of a sleeping child. The dimming is barely there, 1%. A fraction of a percent yet, within that loss, lives a world. Outlined not in lines and shores, but in subtraction. Transit is a blink made meaningful by repetition. The planet has no voice loud enough to shout its name, so it passes in front, lets the star speak for it by what goes missing. Brightness versus time becomes a curve, a shallow bowl. Edges slope down when the planet's leading limb touches stellar fire, flatten as its full body crosses, then rise when the trailing limb departs. You trace that light curve like a fingertip along a pulse, feeling for arrhythmia, for secrets. In the slope, but brightness alone is only silhouette. You want breath, chemistry, texture, so you split the light into wavelengths during transit, turning the dip into a rainbow of dips. Where atmosphere absorbs, the curve sags a little deeper. Water steals in one band, methane in another, carbon dioxide somewhere else. Dimethyl sulfide faint, re-nibbles delicately at its place. Each notch is a syllable, and the whole spectrum reads like an exhaled diary. Timing is tenderness. Miss the start by a minute, and you lose the limb. Miss the end, and you lose the echo. Telescopes schedule nights like rituals. Point, steady, record, don't blink. Clouds on Earth, solar flares, instrument hiccups any could smear the signal. So you pile transits 3, 5, 10, stack them until noise averages away like static fading under a steady melody. Patience does the smoothing. Mathematics does the stitching. The star is not a constant bulb. Spots freckle its face, faculae brighten its edges. As the planet crosses, it might pass over a dark patch, making the dip shallower, or over a bright one, deepening it. Stellar weather writes graffiti on your data. You learn to read around it, model the star, monitor its rotation, subtract its moods. Science is part therapy. Tell me how you feel today, star, so I can hear your planet clearly. In secondary eclipse, the moment the planet hides behind the star, you catch another kind of whisper. The system's total light drops, not because the star dims, but because the planet's own glow disappears. That tiny absence tells you temperature, tells you if clouds are bright or surfaces dark. Emission spectra join transmission spectra. Dayside heat speaks, nightside cool sighs. 2 blinks, 2 stories. You ride these heartbeats of light slow and steady. The period 33 days here sets the pulse. Each transit, another beat. Between them you prepare, calibrate, rest. During them you hold still, like a photographer with a long exposure. Your reward is measured in parts per 1,000, per 10,000, yet each part is a foothold on a foreign shore. Imagine flipping a flip book frame by frame. In the margin of each picture, a tiny note appears, invisible unless you pause. Water, next page. Methane, next CO. Some pages whisper no ammonia, and the absence is as loud as any presence. By the time you finish, you have an index of air. You close the book, but the story lingers, humid, warm, alive, maybe. Light curves are simple plots, flux on the y-axis, time on the x, but their edges hide complexity. Limb darkening makes the star's rim dimmer than its center. Integrate. Wrong, and you misjudge the planet's size. Grazing transits mimic smaller worlds. Multi-planet systems layer dips like chords. You learn to deconvolve, to peel curves apart like onions, tearful but cleaner with each layer removed. Noise is patient too. Instrumental drift, detector persistence, jitter each adds its own wiggle. Pipeline code must be as calm as bedtime. Breathing, inhale baseline, exhale fit, pause residuals. You do not force the curve to your will. You coax it with priors, nudge it with likelihoods, check it with out-of-sample tests. Overfitting is like telling a child a story with too many twists. They stop trusting you. Simplicity with honesty keeps the listener, keeps you at ease. During transit, starlight grazes the planet's limb, passing through tens, hundreds of kilometers of air, if air exists. Different altitudes, different pressures, different chemistries, stacked like a parfait. Broad features mean abundant gas. Sharp ones mean clear layers. Muted ones hint at clouds or haze. You infer cloud tops by what you cannot see below, like guessing water depth when your toe never hits bottom. The geometry is elegant. A tiny change in flux encodes radius ratio, impact parameter, orbital inclination. From these, density follows. When mass is known from wobble or timing variations, density whispers. Interior, rock, water, gas. Pair that with atmospheric flavor, and you sketch a cross-section in your mind hydrogen cushion. possible ocean, high-pressure ice, transit. Photometry becomes tomography by patience. You sit with the beauty that all of this oceans, blankets, breaths is, inferred from dimness. There is poetry in that restraint. You don't need to see the planet glowing blue to know water. Just see the star fade more at 1.4 microns than at 1.3. You don't need a photograph of clouds to suspect haze. Just note a flattened spectrum, where peaks should rise. Science is listening with math. The cadence of transits lulls you. Predictable, regular, a metronome for data collection. But even in regularity, surprises can hide. Transit timing variations from other worlds tugging. Transit depth changes from evolving clouds. Continual watching turns a static portrait into a time-lapse, whether on an exoplanet. Seasons, perhaps, or outgassing events. Every new dip can be compared to the last, differences circled gently. You are not alone at the eyepiece. Missions, share targets, observatories coordinate. One catches the ingress, another the egress. One covers infrared bands, another optical. Collaboration is a hammock strung between instruments. You rest in it, trust its knots. When curves from different teams overlay and agree, you side deeper than numbers, nearer to trust. Even the absence of a transit can speak, if predicted, but unseen. Maybe the orbit precessed, maybe a dust cloud intervened, maybe the planet is ringed and you misread its shape. Rings, you remember Saturn's photometric wobbles. Could a super-Earth wear a gossamer halo? Light curves could hint, subtle shoulders on ingress, egress. Your mind doodles possibilities in the margin of the plot. Photons are counted like rain. But telescopes cannot catch every drop. Some scatter, some saturate, some stuck in dead pixels. You correct, you weigh, you propagate errors. Error bars are rails to cradle the truth, not cages to confine it. Narrow rails, smooth ride, wide rails, gentle swaying. Both can take you home if you know where home is. In those brief hours of transit, the universe shrinks to a line on a screen. Night outside instrument hum around, coffee cooling. Each new data point appears and your heart ticks with it. A dip deepens, check cosmic rays. A spike flag it, calm returns when trends hold. You are reading a diary in real time. Entries scarcer than you wish, but richer than you dreamed. And then blink, the planet is past. Light returns to baseline. You lean back, neck stiff, eyes dry, but inside something loosens. Another heartbeat. Recorded, you archive, you back up twice, you send copies to collaborators, you annotate logs, clouds at second contact. Check star spots tomorrow, you'll detrend. Tonight you sleep with the curves still curving behind your eyes. What will? The margins reveal when you finally turn the last sheet. Maybe a hint of surface glints at certain phases. Thermal maps from phase curves, where dayside heat shifts slowly to night. Phase curves are light curves unwrapped, full orbit brightness tracing atmospheric circulation. You will go there. Next, following the dip into the long, soft rise and fall of an entire revolution between now and then. Let the flipbook close gently. You stack it with others, chapter 1's whisper, 2's scent, 3's warmth, 4's hydrogen size, 5's patient star, 6's heavy hug, 7's twilight ribbon, 8's jeweled storms, 9's sigma hush, 10's golden ear. Transit belongs among them like a heartbeat belongs in a lullaby, recurring, reassuring, always a bit miraculous. Outside your window, maybe a car passes a brief dip in the night's quiet. You notice, then forget. In data, you notice and remember. Remembering is the work. Remembering and comparing and gently asking, is this the same as before? If yes, you smile at civility. If no, you lean forward, alert but calm. The last photons of this transit travel down fiber, through routers, into drives. Somewhere, a checksum is computed, a metafile written. Somewhere else, a person you'll never meet will open it, extract the same line, and nod. Shared curves build shared worlds. Close your eyes on the curve. Let its bowl become a cradle. Let its return to baseline be your breath settling. Let its small variations be dreams skimming your mind's surface. Tomorrow, you will ask the light for more, rotation rates, cloud maps, phase lags. Tonight, you let the dip be enough, a soft valley you can nestle into, and as you drift, a thought sidles. If a dip can teach you so much, what can a full orbit's changing glow reveal about winds, heat, and hidden continents of cloud? Perhaps the glow will sketch habitability itself, loosening your need for Earth's mirror and inviting you to widen the word comfortable. You will follow that widening, letting borders redraw while you rest inside them, wondering how kinds of home chemistry can hold. You loosen your grip on the picture book planet blue swells, green patches, white caps, because comfort can wear other colors. Tonight you widen the word habitable until it stretches without tearing, a fabric that can drape over hydrogen skies, oceans, diamond storms, and metabolisms that sip methane. You do not discard Earth. You place it as one tile in a mosaic, a lovely square among thousands whose hues your eyes are only learning to name. Habitability has always been a verb more than a noun, a process, not a prize. On Earth, it meant liquid water, gentle temperatures, a protective atmosphere, a star stable enough to lull chemistry into complexity. Here, on K218b, the checklist shifts. Liquid matters, but recipe changes. Warmth matters, but its source spreads. Stability matters, but it is achieved with different blankets and balances. The spectrum of good enough for life is broader than your childhood charts, and you feel your shoulders release as it expands. You begin with solvent, because life, as you know it, needs a medium. Water is flexible, polar, an excellent carrier of ions and heat. But water mixed with hydrogen widens its liquid range, resists freezing, shrugs at boiling. An ocean can be thicker, softer, deeper, and still let molecules meet. Could ammonia or methane play similar roles elsewhere? Titan hints yes. Lakes of hydrocarbons, chemistry in the cold. Even there, habitable may just mean habitable for something else. You gently let that possibility sit beside you like a new friend whose language you're eager to learn. Next comes energy. Sunlight is obvious, but not required. Earth's abyss proves that. On K218b, red light filters through haze. Infrared. Warmth circulates. Chemical gradients abound. Hydrogen oxidation, sulfur reduction, carbon fixation. Metabolic menus expand when time is plentiful and pressure is kind. You picture life forms as chefs, improvising with whatever the pantry offers, making feasts out of gradients you once overlooked. Then structure. Gravity 3 times Earth's press is hard, but provides stability. Thick air, snug oceans, slow climates. Bodies adapt broad, low, dense if bodies evolve at all. Or maybe life prefers films and foams, membranes stretched across colonies smeared along mineral faces, citywide mats that ripple instead of run. Mobility is relative when opportunity flows past you daily on currents of heat and chemistry. Protection matters too. Your sun's ultraviolet can sterilize. This red dwarf's flares can ionize, but atmospheres shield, magnetic fields deflect, oceans absorb. Life survives not by avoiding all harm, but by buffering, repairing, retreating, returning. Returning resilience is as much part of habitability as resource. A world that can roll with punches, smooth spikes, and store excess for lean times wears a quieter crown. The old Goldilocks zone was a ring drawn at a distance. Not too hot, not too cold. Useful, but incomplete. Now you feel the zone as a space inside conditions, not around stars. The overlap of solvent, energy, time, protection, and chemistry. A hydrogen envelope can drag that overlap inward. A reflective cloud deck can push it outward. Internal heat can sustain it underground. Tidal kneading can keep it warm under ice. Goldilocks, it turns out, is not a circle but a cloud, diffuse, patchy, variable through time. You look back at Earth with softer eyes. Our world is not perfect, just fortunate. Snowball episodes froze oceans. Asteroid winters dimmed skies. Oxygen itself was once a poison. Habitability was negotiated, reclaimed, reinvented. If Earth could wobble and still cradle life, why require steadiness elsewhere? Let other planets negotiate too, with different currencies. Metrics shift. Where once you asked, is there oxygen? You now ask, is there disequilibrium? On Earth, life maintains imbalances. Oxygen high, methane present, nitrogen fixed. On K218b, the imbalance might be dimethyl sulfide without ammonia. Methane with carbon dioxide, features flattened by clouds that life seeds intentionally or incidentally. Habitability is legible as pattern, not ingredient list. Your sense of comfort reshapes. Comfort used to mean familiar. Now it means functional. Can molecules meet and greet? Can energy flow without roaring? Can damage be repaired faster than it accumulates? If yes, comfort exists even if the air would choke you, the pressure would crush you, the gravity would pin you. Habitability is empathy extended to chemistries that would never invite you. And that's fine, you are a guest in thought only. The galaxy enlarges when you stop insisting on mirrors. Every red dwarf becomes a candidate, every super-Earth a what-if, every mini-Neptune a maybe. Statistics blossom. If even a fraction of such worlds host life, then life is common, not cosmic accident. Your loneliness loosens another notch. You are a type, not an exception. You turn to language. Words like Earth-like and super-Earth center you too strongly. Better to say water world, hydrogen, ocean, planet, temperate, sub-Neptune. To let categories grow descriptive, not nostalgic. Precision is kindness here. It prevents you from stuffing new shapes into old boxes, breaking both in the attempt. You listen to the discipline shift too. Astrobiologists speak of biosignature suites instead of silver bullets. Climate scientists modeled tidally locked circulation instead of spinning spheres. Planetary geologists include high-pressure ices in their diagrams like extra chapters. A field matures by pluralizing terms, tools, expectations. You feel pride in that maturity, like watching a child learn more than one way to count. Comfort extends to time scales. Trillions of years under a red dwarf let evolution stall, surge. Stall again, exploring chemical space like an artist with endless canvases. Short-lived stars may foster fast, flashy life that burns bright, then fades. Both are valid, both habitable in their ways. Duration is a parameter, not a requirement. Even surface becomes negotiable. Habitable does not have to mean walkable. Subsurfaced oceans under ice shelves, pore networks in rocks, aerosols suspended in convective layers. Real estate is large when you think vertically. Clouds themselves can be ecosystems. Droplets can be rafts. Gravity and chemistry set the zoning. Laws. Life signs the lease wherever it can. You let metaphors do gentle lifting. Habitability is a spectrum, not a checkbox. A palette, not a swatch. A chord, not a single note. Earth is middle sea pleasant, central but melodies wander. Some worlds play in minor keys, melancholy but beautiful. Others in modes you have yet to invent. Listening expands when you accept new music, but there is caution in expansion. Broaden too far and habitable dissolves into anywhere. The word must still guide telescopes, grant time, priorities. So you keep criteria, but elastic. One's liquid of some kind, energy gradient capable of work, molecules complex enough to store and transmit information. Environment stable enough to allow accumulation, yet dynamic enough to avoid stagnation. Gates are needed, but doors stay wide. Habitability is also cultural, a mirror to how you define home. As you grow to accept alien homes, you grow in empathy here. Desert, swamp, deep sea earthly ecologies you once saw as hostile become fascinating. A hydrogen ocean planet teaches you to cherish Earth's nitrogen breath without making it the only breath worthy of awe. You think of future missions. Some will sniff atmospheres for sweets of gases. Others will image planets directly, mapping clouds and continents. Proposals include starshades, hypertelescopes, interferometers. Each design carries assumptions about what matters, what signals count. Redefining habitable reshapes hardware, sensors tuned to dimethyl sulfide bands, coronagraphs optimized for red dwarf glare, models calibrated for tidally locked weather. Policy follows science. Funding agencies ask, which world's first? You answer with broadened lists, not just Earth clones, but super-Earths in hydrogen fog, mini-Neptunes at the right insulation, moons of gas giants with internal heat. Diversity becomes strategy, not distraction. You exhale, noticing how your shoulders dropped as you widened the term. Narrow definitions breed tension. What if we miss the only real kind? Broad ones allow relaxation if we miss one world's signal, another will sing. Wonder multiplies when scarcity fades. Still, you keep a thread to the personal. Habitable for whom? Not for you, perhaps, but for someone or something. Your lungs, bones, nerves are tuned to 1G, one atmosphere, one sun. You do not need to transplant yourself to validate another niche. Solidarity can be conceptual. Let aliens breathe hydrogen. Let them weigh 4 times what you do. Let their senses ride currents you cannot feel. They are still kin in striving. Definition shifts do not erase romance. Habitable zone still sounds like a fairy ring, a circle of mushrooms where magic dwells. Now you know the ring wiggles, stretches, overlaps with others. The magic is in the wiggle. Uncertainty breeds stories. Stories guide experiments. Experiments prune stories. A healthy loop. How many kinds of comfort can life invent when given time? You list a few, Drowsy, warmth held by hydrogen, light sifted through rubies of dust, pressure that pampers instead of punishes, storms that sprinkle catalysts, stars that burn forever. Then you let the list go, unfinished, the best lullabies. Never resolve every chord as sleep leans in. A new curiosity opens one eye. If habitability is a spectrum, how do you read it quickly from far away? Spectra, again this time, not just during transits, but across full orbits, phases, seasons. Disequilibrium signs stitched into light curves, thermal maps whispering of circulation, albedo changes hinting at weathered surfaces. Tomorrow you will follow circulation itself, flipbook, unspooled into a continuous film, phase by phase, heat flowing, clouds migrating. For now, you float on a widened word, cradled by its elasticity, and wonder quietly what else might belong under its generous roof. You start with a list, just a list: coordinates, periods, radii, temperate guesses, scribbled in columns. Yet, the longer you stare, the more the spreadsheet becomes a star field. Each row is not a number, but a night, a possible sky, a lullaby waiting to be hummed. 50 worlds within 200 light years, close enough that their light left when gramophones played and telegrams clicked, close enough to make your chest feel roomier, as if the neighborhood suddenly had porches lit late and windows warm. Fireflies. You think, little intermittent glows in long grass, some bright, some faint, some gone before you focus, others hanging in the air long enough to tell a story with their pattern. The catalogue is like that, dots that turn into dancers when you connect them with patience and probability. Around M-dwarfs, around K-stars, around suns you cannot see without lenses tiny. Signatures of dips and wobbles that add up to a constellation of could base. Statistics become a star field because every probability is a point of light. 10% chance of water clouds here, 30% chance of volcanic outgassing there, 90 of thick hydrogen blankets elsewhere. Scatter them across a plot and you get the Milky Way in miniature, a band of likelihoods arcing through. Your mind, you knew, abstractly, that planets are common. Now you feel numeracy warming into intimacy. Nearby space is busy, not barren. You feel small, yes, one observer, one species, but you also feel abundant, like a drop welcomed by a warm sea. If 50 candidates sing within 200 light years, how many within 2,000? 2 million. Scale the volume, scale the time, scale the patience, and abundance stops being a poem and becomes a plan. Surveys widen, instruments sharpen, lists lengthen. Before long, maps will need layers to show the density of habitable-ish dots. Each world hums its own lullaby. Some in methane minor, some in water major, some in discordant sulfur chords. You press your ear to their light curves and hear rhythm. 33-day beats, 90-day beats, quick drummers close to flaring stars. Beyond the beat, you hear texture, thick atmospheres muffling highs, thin ones letting treble through. Clouds acting like reverb, scattering soundlight into wider ranges. Catalogues are love letters written in numbers. KOI this, TOI that, K218B, LAH, S1140, B Trappist 1. E, F, G alphabet soups that taste of obsession. Behind each identifier hides a team that watched, waited, squinted, subtracted. In between the letters are sleepless nights and coffee cold in mugs, grant deadlines and peer reviews. Code that refused to run, then suddenly did, to read the catalogue. is to read human endurance encoded as decimals. You mark the local bubble in your head. Stars near enough to be family by cosmic standards. Inside it, 50 worlds already flagged as comfortable in some way. Comfortable not to you, perhaps, but to chemistry, to metabolism, to evolution. Imagine a map on the wall with pins, red for hydrogen skies, blue for water clouds, green for rocky surfaces. The region fills quickly, and you need new colors: amber for hazes, violet for biosignature hints, silver for unexplained spectra. Probability turns into presence, the way fog turns into drizzle, gradually. Then suddenly you feel it on your skin. At first, the Drake equation was an exercise, a line of factors multiplied to pass an evening. Now, terms solidify. FP planets per star, approximately 1. Ni habitable worlds per system is not a whisper, but a count. Eiffel fraction that develop life begins to itch your certainty. Phi fraction with intelligence is still a mystery, but the stage before it, simple life, starts to look common enough to relax your shoulders. Within 200 light years, telescopes like Webb, TESS, Cheops, Plato, and ground arrays have skimmed the nearby pond. Stones skip, ripples expose rings, transit and radial velocities pairing to give mass and radius, density, hint of composition. You watch as next-generation spectrographs promise to sniff atmospheres of even smaller worlds around brighter stars in greater detail. The catalogue thins in some patches. Not all stars are aligned, just so, but patterns already emerge. Here is a super-Earth in the habitable zone of a quiet red dwarf, dense as iron, likely bare rock. There is a mini Neptune with a puffy envelope, maybe losing atmosphere, maybe on its way to becoming something new. Over there, a world tidally locked with a twilight band of liquid water, clouds shimmering at the edges. Each dot is a story prompt, each statistic a premise. You could live your whole life writing the prologue of each and never finish, and that makes you smile. Not sigh. You remember when Earth Twin was the headline dream, radius within 10%, insulation within patchy bounds, sun-like, star preferred. The more you read, the more that dream shrinks. Earth has no monopoly on comfort, maybe not even on complexity. When you release the twin, you gain siblings of every size, cousins cloaked in fog, distant relatives forged in pressure. Family reunions get louder, richer. The 50 ignite a deeper mathematical warmth. Suppose even 10% truly host biospheres. 5 living worlds in our local patch. Multiply outward. The galactic disk spans 100,000 light years. Volume grows with the cube of radius. If 5 live near us, how many far out? Thousands, millions. You feel the number balloon, and yet it does not pop. It softens, becomes a chorus whose individual voices you cannot pass yet, but whose harmony you trust. 50 is a start, not a summit. Survey biases still skew what you see. Transits favor close in orbits. Radial velocities lose sensitivity past certain periods. Imaging struggles near bright glare. Algorithms are tuned to certain light curves, certain noises. You remind yourself to be humble, to expect surprises when instruments change, to leave room on the map for ghosts made solid later. Some entries in the catalogue carry flags: possible, false positive, stellar activity high, secondary line detected. These are the smudges on the page. You do not erase them, you annotate. Science sleeps better with footnotes. Over time, flags drop or firm, but the act of flagging is as important as any detection. Care is part of counting. You feel the neighborhood as a playground and a lab. Within 200 light years, we can test hypotheses, refine techniques, build confidence. Beyond that, we scale. The armchair astronomer in you imagines an app someday. Tap a star, see its planets, swipe through spectra, watch phase curves. Animated, zoom to day-night maps. Children will grow up with exoplanet weather forecasts as casually as you grew with satellite images of Earth. Billions, beyond. You picture the Milky Way as a spiral arm-banded bracelet, each bead a system. Each system possibly carrying several worlds, each world a maybe. Spiral density waves sculpt star formation. Metallicity gradients subtly shift planet types. The inner galaxy, rich in heavy elements, may host more rocky worlds. Outer regions, multiplied hydrogen giants. You taste that gradient like salt on the rim of a glass familiar spice. New setting. You feel times roll as much as spaces. Stars older than the sun could host worlds where life had a head start by billions of years. Others born yesterday may just be cooling. The catalogue is a temporal map as well as spatial. Some of your 50 are toddlers, their atmospheres in tantrum. Others are middle-aged, settled, chemistry in cruise. Age joins, radius, mass, temperature. As a column in your sheet, neighborhood implies visits, but travel laughs. 200 light years is close on scales of galaxy, impassable on human timescales. Yet you can send instruments of light and math. That is enough for now. Rockets may sleep, but photons run. Patience again is propulsion. You picture future observatories stationed at far Lagrange points, interferometers stretching kilometers, maybe telescopes orbiting opposite sides of Earth, forming a baseline to resolve continents. You imagine parallax, not just for stars, but for planetary surfaces, cross-fading images to build depth. Catalogue entries become portraits, then documentaries. For now, statistics hold you. Poisson errors shrink as counts rise. Bayesian posteriors sharpen with priors updated. Each new detection tightens the curve of expectation. The standard model of planetary formation gets tweaked. Migration common, resonance chains, pebble accretion. Shaping cores. Better models mean better predictions, mean smarter searches. Iteration is intimacy. If nearby space hums with life, what chorus waits in the spiral arms? You see the galaxy as a concert hall and you are late to the performance, but the music is still swelling. Choruses in other dialects, keys you do not have names for, instruments with more strings. Even silence somewhere is a rest note, meaningful in the score. Not all worlds will sing nicely. Some will hiss with volcanic soot, others wheeze under frozen lids, others scream with radiation storms. Habitability is not guaranteed. The catalogue will include tragedies, deserts, tombs. Appreciating life's abundance means witnessing lifelessness without despair, using it to refine the path between you. Bless statistics for their honesty. They let you say likely, rare, almost never, surprisingly often. They free you from binary yes, no. A planet can be 0.6, likely to have water clouds. That fractional truth is still useful, still soothing. The universe is analog. Let your language be two. You are a drop in a warm sea, and the sea is measured. Graphed, peer-reviewed. There is communion in that. Others see the same numbers, plot the same points, feel the same swell of quiet awe. Community emerges from catalogues, Slack channels buzzing during transit nights, Zoom calls at weird hours across time zones, papers with dozens of authors, each a small vector pointing to a larger arrow of understanding. 50 is enough to dream, not enough to conclude. You fall asleep somewhere between those verbs. Dreams supply hypotheses, waking supplies tests. Tomorrow you will re-rank targets, argue about which deserves precious hours, revise your priors, write another proposal. Tonight you let probability be present and presence be pillow. As your breath slows, a last statistic drifts. By maybe 1 in 10 sun-like stars hosts a temperate rocky world. Maybe more around red dwarfs, maybe fewer, but with deeper biospheres. The numbers melt into glow. In that glow, you imagine not telescopes, but messages, not spectra, but stories. If we are many, how do we share? Light will carry first, but eventually, maybe, matter will follow. Engines dream at the edge of your drowsiness. You turn slightly, feel the mattress cradle you the way gravity cradles those thick atmospheres, and wonder not, urgently, just curiously, how we will listen when the chorus swells, and what single voice will rise clear enough to call your name across the dark, inviting you to the next gentler question. Perhaps it will not be a voice at all, but a pattern, a rhythm in a light curve, a chemical cadence in a spectroma message written in the only ink we all share, physics. And perhaps the next step is not outward but inward, to ask how your own world sings back, and whether its melody is kind enough to be heard. For us all, your radios have been whispering for only a breath of cosmic time, roughly a century of carrier waves, music, news bulletins, radar pings faint, soap bubbles drifting outward at light speed. You imagine them now, expanding shells of human noise slipping through interstellar dark, thinning, scattering, but still there, a murmur around our star. Somewhere within 200 light years, those bubbles have already passed. Someone, something, could tune an instrument and hear us the way you hear Jupiter's hiss or the sun's wind in radio bands. Listening goes both ways. You point dishes, dipoles, phased arrays at the sky. Let algorithms comb through static for order prime numbers, narrowband spikes, repeating pulses. SETI is patience embodied, data stacked like blankets against night's chill. You learned to subtract RFI your own planet's chatter so that any pattern left is cleaner, more foreign. In the hush between transmissions, anticipation breathes with you, slow and long, a shared inhalation across light years. Perhaps first contact is not a greeting but a glow. You stare at spectra for oxygen paired with methane, for phosphine balanced against ethylysis, 4-dimethyl sulfide waving quietly from hydrogen seas. A biosignature is a planetary scale hello, written in chemistry instead of code. If you found Earth from afar, you would see oxygen far too high, methane stubbornly present. A radio leak shimmering in centimeter waves. That trio would tell you, something stirs there. You consider what we look like, a thin band of frequencies crowded with FM, TV, military radar, cellular towers, now shrinking as fiber replaces broadcast, as tight beams replace sprays. Our loudest signals are increasingly aimed, not spilled. Civilization is becoming radio quiet, wrapped in cables and optics. The bubble keeps expanding, but the center dimming. If they waited too long, our shout becomes a whisper, still present, just harder to distinguish from the cosmic microwave background's warm hiss. So you widen your ears beyond radio. Optical SETI searches for laser flashes, no second spikes. Brighter than a star for a heartbeat. neutrino messages, gravitational wave modulations, even exotic ideas like modulated neutrino beams flicker through proposals. You rest in the probability that intelligence, if common, is pragmatic. It will use physics' easy channels. Still, you leave room for surprise. Closed minds miss fireworks. Communication is constrained by distance. If someone 120 light away heard Marconi's dots and dashes, a reply launched instantly would arrive long after you are gone. Yet you still send. The Arecibo message, the Voyager records, the Pioneer Plaxtime capsules flung like seeds into a wind that never gusts back soon. You send because that is part of being alive. To speak, to sing, to carve on cave walls, to leave notes under stones. You wonder what you would say if you knew they were already leaning closer. Would you choose math, universal and austere? A sequence of primes, a map of pulsars, a periodic table encoded in pulse widths? Or would you send art laughter in audio, paintings as pixel grids, recipes for bread, lullabies, a child's crayon drawing scanned and translated into wavelengths? Perhaps both. Fact as scaffolding, feeling as insulation. Before speaking, you listen harder to yourself. What does Earth sound like, truly? Lightning whistlers, whale songs, seismic groans, chlorophylls, faint fluorescence, city hums, heartbeats amplified in hospital rooms. You dream of compressing that soundscape into a message of many layers. Physics on the outside for hooking, biology in the middle for context, culture in the center for soul. The packet would open like nesting dolls for any patient mind. Risk. Murmurs in the margins. Some argue for radio silence. We announce our address when we do not know who listens. Others say the sky already knows. The sun's biosignatures betray us louder than any transmitter. Caution and curiosity duel gently in your head. Sleep needs them balanced. Fear low enough to let you drift. Wonder high enough to keep the next. Day bright, you picture an alien SETI lab, a room or whatever they inhabit full of screens or sensory analogues. Algorithms seeking narrow carriers, interns labeling candidate events, senior scientists cautioning restraint. Maybe they too grapple with RFI, except their interference is caused by methane rains hitting superconductive planes. Maybe they too miss signals while debugging code. Shared struggle is empathy's foothold. Communication across light years is letters, not conversations. By the time an answer returns, cultures can shift, languages mutate, species evolve or dissolve. So you model messages as monologues, complete, redundant, self-decoding. The Rosetta Stones you design must bootstrap. Understanding from mathematics to images to sentences to humor. You slow down, include error correction. Anticipate misunderstandings the way you do when teaching a child gently. Narrowband radio is efficient. Put a lot of power into a tiny slice. Let it cut through noise. Nature rarely does that on its own. So you hunt for spikes. You also hunt for Doppler drift, frequency changing as transmitter and receiver spin, orbit, accelerate. A real signal will slide predictably. Software can follow. This is lullaby, work incremental adjustment, constant vigilance. Soft satisfaction when plots line up. You imagine the answer was already sent and is crossing space now, photons stacked. Neatly, data compressed lovingly, headed for a point Earth occupied decades ago. The line between here and there sweeps forward, leaving behind potential mail undelivered. The geometry of communication is a waltz. Timing, placement, momentum. You can only be in one light-time shell at once. That limitation turns the act of listening into a meditation on presence. Maybe contact begins not with technology, but with coincidence. Two civilizations observe the same supernova, annotate the same gravitational wave, chirp with modulated addenda, leave signatures in cosmic events far brighter than any transmitter. A shared canvas physics becomes a billboard. You imagine carving a pattern in the polarization of a pulsar's beam, letting all who study it see your mark. Graffiti, but in good taste. What if the first proof of mind elsewhere is a change we cannot make ourselves? An engineered dimming of a star by megastructures, or a heat signature that does not fit planets or dust. Dyson spheres, Shkadov thrusters, flirting with engineering and fiction. You keep them as mental spice, not main course. Closer to the table are biosignatures, technosignatures like chlorofluorocarbons, nitrogen dioxide in weird ratios, night-side illumination hints. Every spectrum is a potential confession. You comfort yourself with the thought that silence does not mean solitude. Perhaps everyone listens. No one shouts caution as consensus. Perhaps everyone shouts on channels you do not know. Perhaps time seldom overlaps. The Milky Way is old. Civilizations may flicker like campfires seen from a highway brief. Bright, quickly gone. Your job is to keep driving, eyes soft, patient. Between transmissions, you practice humility. Noise taught you that. False alarms sting, but they temper. The wow signal remains an exclamation without context. Fast radio bursts tease, but appear natural. Each almost teaches caution wrapped in excitement. You learn to celebrate effort, not only contact. You stretch further. Could life itself be the listener while technology sleeps? Bacteria respond to electromagnetic fields. Plants listen to light. Entire ecosystems adjust to cycles. Perhaps intelligence spreads subtly, choosing to sculpt environments instead of sending beacons. If you read a planet's chemistry, you are hearing its collective biology hum. Listening both ways also means listening within your biosphere. Speaks, answer it kindly. If they are hearing us, they may be hearing our mistakes. Emissions of chlorofluorocarbons, nitrogen oxides, combustion byproducts, the spectral fingerprints of industrial adolescence. You flinch a little. Will they judge? Maybe they too scarred their skies before learning repair. Shared shame could be bridge, not barrier. Honesty might open more doors than polished perfection. In the hush, you consider ethics. If you could reply to a detected infant civilization, would you? Would you send knowledge that could unbalance harm? SETI becomes met iMessaging wrapped in responsibility. Protocols are drafted. Global consensus before reply. Transparent archives. No single voice speaking for all. You drift knowing governance is as important as guidance systems. Anticipation is breath control. Inhale, scan, process, model, exhale. Archive, share, wait. Between is the held breath of possibility. You match your lungs to that rhythm, calm but awake. Meditation teachers talk about watching thoughts pass like clouds. SETI teaches watching signals pass like comets, most tails natural, one perhaps carved. What would you say if you knew they were already leaning closer? Perhaps you'd start small. We are here. We are learning. We wish you well. Simple, declarative, like first words in a new language. Then you'd send more, nested messages peeled as understanding grows. You would include mistakes, art, jokes, joy. A true self, not a curated brand. You smile at the thought of lullabies crossing space. Music is mathematics wearing emotion. Ratios of frequencies, patterns of rhythm, universal hooks for ears evolved to hear patterns. A batch fugue, a qawwali, a rogga, a throat song, each translates ratio differently but sincerely. Send them all. Let variety speak for vitality. There is also listening nearby to our oceans, forests, atmospheres. Earth is a transmitter and receiver in its own loop. Treating home kindly prepares you to meet guests. Empathy practiced locally scales better when applied cosmically. If you cannot hear the rainforest's stress, how will you hear a hydrogen ocean's sigh? Perhaps the contact already happened long before radios encoded in myths. In sudden knowledge blooms, in whispers shamans heard, under star-salted skies. You do not dismiss poetry because you love science. You let them braid. The rational mind can still respect the intuitive ear. Listening both ways includes listening across ways of knowing. You drift to the edge of sleep where imagination blurs into hypothesis. A narrowband spike peaks above noise. Algorithms flag it. Humans check, recheck, rule out Earth. The drift matches orbital motion. The repetition fits a prime rhythm. A message, perhaps. You envision the email subject line. Candidate narrowband. Detection urgent. Heart quickens. Breath shallows, then steadies. The community gathers, tests, waits. Even if it fades to prosaic cause, the rehearsal mattered. One day the plot will hold dot. First contact might be a glow, not a greeting. Your reply might be a spectrum cleaned of smog, a world healing, a climate stabilizing, a biosphere thriving. Techno-signature as apology, biosignature as promise. You can choose to let your answer be your stewardship. Sleep now, while receivers watch and transmitters rest. Let algorithms stand vigil, sifting sky haystacks for needle songs. Your last thought folds gently. If they lean closer, perhaps we lean inward too, preparing a kinder voice. And in that leaning, another question rises, quiet and near. How will we change ourselves after we know we are heard? Tomorrow, you will cradle the message inside, turning from distant ears to the quiet chambers of your own mind, where endings become beginnings. Softly again, you arrive here softly, not with trumpets, but with the hush that follows a candle being cupped from the wind. The realization settles like warm weight on your chest. You are not, and perhaps were never, alone. It is not a headline. It is a heartbeat becoming part of a larger rhythm. Loneliness loosens, not by breaking, but by untying itself like a gentle knot you worried in the dark. All the chapters behind you breathe in this moment, spectra whispered, temperatures cradled, hydrogen oceans imagined, statistics hummed, mirrors. Aligned, light curves read, catalogues blossomed, signals awaited. Each thread you followed was a filament in a wider web. Now, sensing other webs glimmering in the same starlight, you feel how a universe can become reciprocal, how it can hold you back when you reach out. The soft shock is not adrenaline, it is resonance. Like two tuning forks tuned to the same note. Distant biospheres vibrate your own sense of aliveness. You feel larger without swelling, calmer without dulling. Awe deepens like a well that does not threaten to drown you because a rope connection hangs ready. Science told you carefully, 3 sigma here, tentative there, an absence of ammonia, a presence of dimethyl sulfide, a pattern in phase curves, a whisper in radio, Philosophy kept asking what it means. Tonight, the numbers and the meaning fold into one another like dough and yeast, rising quietly. Proof becomes presence, and presence becomes permission to rest, to wonder, to belong. You picture the galaxy again, but the map changes. Before, it was a board of rocks and gas. Now, halves appear points of warmth, not just light. Each could be a culture, a chemistry, a chorus. Constellations are no longer only for navigation. They are neighborhoods. You imagine their shapes, redrawn not by mythic hunters and swans, but by living ecosystems casting their spectral shadows. The word we stretches. It once meant your family, your city, your species. Now it can include membranes floating in hydrogen seas, forests of pressure-loving fronds under red suns, bacterial reefs sparkling with diamond dust. You do not know their stories, yet we hold space for them, the way a table is set. For guests still on the way, being part of a constellation of hearths changes how you hold your own flame. You shield it more carefully, not out of fear, but out of respect. Pollution, spectra, climate scars, extinction lines are now not just local tragedies. They are notes other listeners might hear. Stewardship becomes signal. Healing becomes broadcast. The shock is soft because it carries comfort. Bedtime is easier when the house is not empty. You close your eyes and imagine distant minds, however minds manifest also dimming lights, also setting instruments to watch through the night. Somewhere, someone might trace our oxygen curve the way you traced theirs, might guess at oceans, might write poems about blue you cannot see. Interstellar empathy blooms quietly, petal by spectral petal. Your body relaxes into this widened belonging. Shoulders sink, breath slows, heart rate finds a new baseline. Physiology answers cosmology without words. Safety cues are ancient, and being among many is one. Evolution wired you to seek tribe. The cosmos just extended the circle, yet abundant. Company does not erase mystery. It amplifies it. Every life elsewhere multiplies questions. How do they sense? What do they value? What rhythms soothe them? Do they sing? Do they count? Do they dream? Wonder becomes communal, a potluck of curiosities spilled across spiral arms. You taste humility like cool water. You are not the pinnacle. You are a participant. Pride rearranges itself from peak to plateau, an even ground where many can stand. This leveling does not shrink you. It redistributes height into breadth, giving more horizon to share. The narrative of humanity shifts from first to among, from alone in the dark to one lantern in a long canyon. Stories you tell children may change, not we are special because we are alone, but we are special because we learned to listen, to care, to answer kindly when the dark answered back. In that reframing, urgency softens. Exploration remains passionate, but desperation fades. You no longer chase aliens to prove worth. You meet neighbors to exchange weather reports and wisdom. The thrill stays, the emptiness leaves. You can sit on the porch of your solar system and simply watch, knowing other porches face the same night. Not being alone shifts science to biosignature lists widen, technosignature ethics mature. Collaboration could one day span light years shared observing campaigns nested in centuries. Even before contact, the mere possibility shapes behavior. You write code with clarity, archives with redundancy, messages with care. Posterity might be planetary, not merely national. Sleep feels safer now. Dreams come gentler. When nightmares rise of hostile invaders or cold indifference, you remind yourself, hostility wastes energy. Indifference cannot erase what already is. The most likely is quiet coexistence, separated by gulfs that make kindness easier than conquest. Peace by physics. You snuggle into that logic like a blanket. You hold the universe and feel it hold you back. That reciprocity is subtle. A photon absorbed, a spectrum returned, a message received, a reply begun. Feedback loops are how systems live, ecologies, bodies, galaxies. You are in one now, not closed, but connected. The softness of the shock also lives in time. Acceptance arrives gradually. First a paper, then replication, then headlines, then art, then policy, then culture. By the time schoolchildren memorize the first confirmed biosignature planet, the panic will be gone. They will grow up with others as given, like gravity. Your generation is the Bridgenard to feel the tremor, tasked to pass only steadiness. On, gratitude swells. Gratitude for mirrors of gold, for engineers aligning segments, for statisticians counting sigmas, for astrophysicists passing noise, for storytellers weaving sense. Gratitude, too, for microbes on Earth who paved biochemical roads, for ancestors who asked stars for meaning when data was slim. You are held by a lineage of curiosity. You also feel grief small, necessary. Grief for the version of yourself that found solace in singularity, for myths of centrality that once comforted. Letting them go leaves a tender space. You place wonder. There, you let it ache happily. The question changes. Not, are we alone? But how do we behave, knowing we are not? Ethics widen. Rights for ecosystems on other worlds. Non-interference protocols deeper than prime directives. Cultural humility in first messages. You draft principles in your sleep. Laugh at yourself, but keep them. Dreaming rules is practice for living them. Communication becomes less about volume, more about tone. You do not need to shout. You need to sing on key, to send signals embedded with patience, clarity, care. The same is true at home. Soft shock teaches soft speech. You revisit your own planet as if seeing it through alien eyes. Blue, white, tan, high oxygen, low methane. Trace chlorofluorocarbons, fading you hope. Night-side speckles, cities declining as lighting becomes efficient. You imagine what you would infer. Oceans, weather systems, vegetation cycles, technology transition. Pride flickers, responsibility glows. The playground widens, but your swing set remains lovely. Being not alone does not make Earth less worth. It heightens. Valuer biosphere is rare, locally, specific, irreplaceable. You tend it not to impress neighbors, but because shared universes deserve healthy participants. And somewhere, another mind might be drifting off with the same thought. Perhaps under a redder sun, perhaps with heavier bones, perhaps suspended in liquid thicker than any sea you know. They too feel the knot loosen, the circle widen. They too fashion lullabies from spectra and statistics. Across distance, sleep synchronizes a planetary hum matching another's. You wonder, as lids droop, what the first shared ritual will be. Not a handshake, but a synchronization of observation, pointing telescopes at each other's stars, exchanging phase curves like postcards. Here is our weather this year. Here is our bloom. Data as greetings, plots as poetry. Soft shock becomes soft commitment to kindness, to patience, to accuracy, to imagination that remains tethered to evidence, to systems that outlast. You, so that replies sent and received find caretakers always. Before you drift fully, you visit once more the child in you who stared at dark ceilings and feared endless empty. You tell them a different bedtime story now. There are lights out there, small and far, but real. They are up late, too. Some are listening, some are singing. None will tuck you in, but their existence makes your blanket warmer. You notice how the room seems quieter after such thoughts, as if noise understood it is unnecessary. Your breath steady, your pulse calm. Biology registers safety, even when the source is conceptual. Knowledge changes chemistry. Chemistry changes comfort. You roll on your side, the way planets roll in orbits, always falling, yet never hitting, held by curvature. The arc of your night bends toward rest. The arc of your species bends toward connection. The arc of the cosmos bends toward complexity sharing itself. These arcs rhyme, and the rhyme soothes. Somewhere a telescope slews, somewhere a server logs, somewhere a poem is written in a language nobody on Earth has heard. Somewhere hydrogen rustles against membranes and something sighs with contentment. You are part of that, not central, but included. Inclusion is enough. You do not need to see their faces to feel their presence. You did not need to see the planet to feel its sea. Inference is intimacy at scale. Evidence is embrace. Tonight, you trust those embraces, wrap them around your shoulders, and let sleep take you like a gentle tide. Tomorrow, questions will return. Policy, protocol, funding, philosophy. Tonight, you let them float. The final chapter is not an ending, just a slowing, like a comet turning at aphelion, ready eventually to fall sunward again with fresh velocity. You murmur one last line to yourself, a promise, more than a plan too. Be a good neighbor in a universe now populated in your heart. The words dissolve before you finish them, blending into breath, into dreams, into the quiet curiosity that will greet you with the dawn. And just as you slip over the threshold, a quieter question forms, tender and small. If the universe holds you back, how gently can you learn to hold it in return?